We are broadcasting live.
Good morning, everyone. This is the meeting of the Council of the Town of Mono, held on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. This meeting is being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation, as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the town's procedural bylaw 2020-42. Residents can either watch this meeting online or later on our website or YouTube. We do have a quorum. Just a reminder that the emergency exits are in the rear of the council chamber. Disclosure of pecuniary interest is possible at this point in the meeting or at any point, followed up in writing by the individual with the clerk. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tiatante, Adawanaran, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous people with this land, its waterways and resources. I have a motion that Council approves the agenda of Session 12-2025 is circulated. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nix. Councillor Melancthon seconds. Any opposition to that? Motion is carried. I have a motion that I have a motion that Council approves the minutes of Session 11-2025 is circulated. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Capes moves, seconded by Councillor Davey. Any opposition? And that motion passes. I have a proclamation which was acknowledged in a flag raising earlier this morning. It's Canadian Multiculturalism Day, whereas Canada is a thriving, diverse nation that reflects on its history in effort to strengthen its societal unity. And whereas the town of Mono recognizes the numerous cultures that its residents represent and contribute to the economic and social advancement of this municipality, and whereas the town of Mono welcomes cultural expressions that enrich our community to create thriving and inclusive neighborhoods that treat all members of our community with equity, equality, and respect, and whereas the town of Mono remains committed to supporting our cultural diversity and inclusion through educational, historical, recreational, and business opportunities for all residents. Therefore, on behalf of Council, I proclaim June 27th, 2025 as Multicultural Day in the town of Mono, and that's dated today's date. That brings us to public question period, and I'm going to go in reverse order and acknowledge anyone in the audience with us who may have a question. If you'd like to come forward, turn on the microphone. And Bill. Good morning.
Good morning, Worship.
If you could just hit the, there you go.
Bill Monroe, Bayberry Road. I haven't been able to come to a few of the meetings when the Watson report was out, but I'd like to speak to it today if you give me the pleasure.
Sure, if you have a question.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
The Cardinal Woods Tower, as far as I know, a tower is for making sure your water pressure's equal and it's fills up and it's an emergency storage, approximately 1 day, for fire stuff or that. And I'm wondering, does Cardinal Woods really need this? I mean, the pressure is fine as far as I can see. I don't see many complaints. Is there another reason, apart from those two, that it's being proposed?
I'm going to turn it over to Matt Donner.
Yeah, thank you. So Council will recall that we received
the ministry inspection report last year for the Cardinal Woods drinking inspection. And they had indicated for the town to look into a storage tower for the Cardinal Woods drinking water system. It's a redundancy. Right now, there's no problem with pressure, like as you mentioned, because Cardinal Woods is run off a pressurized system. It's all pumps, and they're underground reservoirs. But this is something that the ministry has recommended that the town look into.
So it isn't a fait accompli, it's not going to be automatically built, this tower?
Not necessarily.
Because even the report says there's going to be no increase in population and there'll be no increase in consumption. In fact, there's going to be a reduction in consumption because people are watching what they're doing now, you know.
That hasn't been what we've been experiencing in the past, so we have to monitor all the usage in both systems, obviously, every year. There's been issues with max day, the system meeting max day demand. So it's exceeded 964 cubic meters, I believe, in some seasons. So that's something that's triggered the ministry to be concerned, and the drinking, and the town owner and the operating authority. So we are monitoring those things, and it's a concern to the ministry. It's a concern to us not being able to meet it and have the storage capacity for fire suppression and whatnot. So
Yeah. But it would only include 1 day practically. It's not as if it's going to store for indefinitely, you know. Anyway,
Bill, the
Thank
deputy
you.
mayor has something to say.
sure.
Yeah, whether or not it's a fait accompli, Bill, I do think I'm correct in saying, Matt, that our most recent study of water rates by our consulting firm, Watson, built into it the idea that that tower would be built. I think I'm correct in saying that. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
That's why I'm not going to mention water rates, because that's the whole reason for the water
okay.
rates.
So it may,
I'm not going to complain about that right now.
Can I just jump in there? And my understanding, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, the financing of that tower is not from water rates. It's borrowed capital.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, according to the water rate study, the water tower is being financed by debt.
I'd like to bring that up right now as well. After Walkerton, the people of Cardinal Woods had to pay about $1,600 for some water improvements of some sort. I can't remember what. You could get the choice that you pay the $1,500 up front, or you could have it in your bill and you would pay interest on it at the end. I suggest if we do get that, the tower, and the money is divided by the Cardinal Woods people, I'm a bit anal in this, but it works out to about $16,000 per family. I think the people of Cardinal Woods, if that comes about, should get the opportunity to pay the $16,000 up front if they can, instead of paying 20 years of interest on it, which would end up another $18,000 at 3.9% over 20 years. That's just a suggestion.
Keep that in mind.
On page 6 of the capital needs, it has a total capital financing of $21.7 million. It includes the provincial grants. Why would that be? The grant isn't, you know, we get that freebie.
So at the risk of getting into trouble here, I think those monies are primarily for remediation of arsenic in the water, and we are not the only municipality that has this problem. So anything that we're spending towards the remediation of arsenic is hopefully offset by grant monies. I don't know where we stand on that, but...
Yeah, but it says total capital financing. I wouldn't say a grant should be included in the financing.
Well, it's an offset to the financing cost, is it not? Help me out.
We did receive the one grant, if you recall, Your Worship, and we're making an application for a second grant. The province is, we have to commit our own share. The province is committing between 75 to 80%, so we do have to come up with a municipal portion for that arsenic remediation. Now, the rates would have been a lot higher
I don't
if
think
that grant wasn't
you're
factored in.
understanding the question.
So, Bill,
But
I
I'll
think,
drop that one.
yeah, let's Do you have any other questions?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, because there are other people in the audience who have questions as well, so I do have to keep the moving going.
Yes, well,
Meeting.
respectfully, Your Worship, this is a large item.
Yeah. I realize that, but we are doing our best to acquire every penny we can in the form of grants to offset any of our capital costs.
Yeah.
And I should point out that the reason we're having to do this at all is that the federal government has reduced the amount of arsenic that is permissible in drinking water. They've done it once, and we're anticipating that they may do it a second time. So they've brought on these costs.
I was going to bring that up as well, sir.
Okay, go ahead, but be mindful that I do have other people who have questions.
Yep. There's a water reserve of 6,149,000, and there's also a budget for the water service. I can't find this in the regular budget. Where are these monies? I mean, it's a regular, it's got mileage and everything. Where is this budget for the water?
Well, I'll defer to Les, but my understanding is that our water reserve is quite separate and apart from our regular budget. And it's intended, because our system is a user pay-based system, those monies are kept aside for work on the water system. They're not blended in with the regular reserves that the town has.
So it's, the whole budget is somewhere else then? This includes the reserves?
Les, can you elaborate if I've...
That is correct, Your Worship. Like at budget time, I do put that list of reserves. I do not include the water reserve because it has nothing to do with the property tax rate. Now, in that water study, if you go through it, not the presentation slide deck, but the water budget is in there. There's like and the rates are projected out for 10 years, so there is a water budget within that.
I realize that, but why is it in the regular budget every year? Some mention of it.
It's not because only 1/3 of households in Mono are on water, whereas the tax rate bylaw, or tax rate budget, is for everybody. So by putting in the water reserve on that list, it would just cause confusion. Plus we'll have residents saying, well, you have $4 million or whatever in the water reserve. Why can't you just put it towards the tax rate? Because you have the authority to do that. And we're trying to avoid that whole discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Monroe brings up a concern, which I suspect is a concern of many of the residents, and that is the increasing water rates. And he has suggested that perhaps the water tower may not be necessary. One of the issues here is volume of usage, and Mr. Donor commented on that being over the acceptable amount on one day. I'm wondering, Mr. Donor, if there's some other alternative to this, if it's volume of usage, and I don't know what it might be, but it might be as simple as letting the residents know that there is an impending charge which is dependent upon volume of usage, and recommending that they conserve water and see if that makes any effect. But certainly the concerns that Mr. Monroe has brought are very important to us.
Also, the arsenic, I looked up the last 24 report, and the highest point of the arsenic was 8.8. The government's brought it down from 25 millilitres per litre to 10.
And expected to go to 5.
It's going to 5. Why don't they just bring it down to 0 and,
5 is effectively 0.
Yeah.
At least that's the way we're looking at it.
One last question, sir.
Sure.
Do you intend to send a letter out to the water users explaining all this and maybe have a public meeting because it affects 1,000 households?
Well, I think that's probably a wise thing to do, but there is a very detailed website page that describes our water system, describes how we have an inverse rate scheme. We've had it for over 25 years where you're rewarded for using less water by a rate per unit that is lower than if you use a lot of water. We were one of 5% of Canadian municipalities to implement that when we did. So we already do encourage conservation, but I think I think we'll consider that, and I think the important thing is that we get the information out first before we have a public meeting, and people are reacting on the basis of misinformation, because there is misinformation out there about water and sewage.
Well, if you send a letter, Your Worship, you could put the facts in. It wouldn't be misinformation.
I'd be delighted to see that happen.
Yeah. And where is this page in the website? Because I'm in there twice a week and I've never seen it.
Matt?
The water page does have the report, the Watson report.
You know, but where do I find it in the website? Is it under the Works Department?
Yeah, Public Works Department.
Public Works?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you, Your
Drinking water
Worship.
Systems.
Bob?
Thank you. Good morning. Bob McRae, South Mono. I'm question about noise bylaw. So South Mono, specifically where I'm located, is in the perfect storm of noise creating venues. We're south of the OAS Event Center and east of the CVC. Quickly, short preamble. OAS and the CVC have definitely lost their way and are not doing what their official mission statements say. The OAS specifically is not doing what a true agricultural society does, and the CVC certainly is not doing what a conservation authority does. The event center keeps booking more noise-emitting events, and even one which we became aware of the other day, with an organization called Veterans and Everyday Heroes, VEH, which is scheduled apparently for July 18th, 2026. And that, so clearly the OAS or the event center are thumbing their nose at Mono residents. I know that you all agree that you need to give affected residents the support that we deserve. So that's the preamble. Couple of short questions then. When is this council going to pass the new, as I call it, noise is noise bylaw? Unless I've missed it, I don't think it's passed yet, but that will help the cause. Corollary question to that is, since bylaws are all complaint-driven, once you've passed that, and I don't want details here, this is not a discussion, this is a question period, do you intend to actually enforce the new bylaw when it's passed? That's it.
I'm going to ask our clerk to give us a timetable.
So keeping in mind, Your Worship, that times are flexible based on other priorities and items that come before council, the noise bylaw is tentatively scheduled to come back on August 26th.
Okay.
Thank you. That answers that one. The other one perhaps is more a rhetorical question of the intent to enforce it. So, Melinda.
Thanks, Mayor. But I gotta say, I mean, the whole reason why we're doing this and changing it so dramatically from what we've had is that we have had advice that it is not, what we have isn't enforceable, and that these changes are with respect to the definitions and such, and that, and whether, you know, it's bothering people, not just how many decibels it is at where, right? That is so that it's gonna be enforceable. So the answer to the question is yes, of course, that's the plan.
As I say, that's more a rhetorical question and encouragement. I was the chair of the planning committee when the current noise bylaw was recommended to the council of the day. And you know, so I'm intimately familiar with noise bylaws, and that I was one on that planning committee who really pushed for the only exemption that's in that bylaw is for the Orangeville Agricultural Society, who have lost their way. I'm regretting having pushed that through, but I thought that it was important, Mono being a rural town, that fares are something that rural towns are known for.
Bob, can I make a small correction? The bylaw has an exemption for the fall fair. It does not have an exemption for the Ag Society or the Event Center. Fred's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. I understood it, but thank you for the record that was the exemption.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, John.
Mr. McRae, I just want to dispute one thing that you said. The CVC, you said, is not fulfilling its mandate. I strongly disagree with you, sir. Part of their mandate is to have green space and have the public out there and enjoying it, okay? Thanks. I don't want to argue with you. I just want to say for the public record, I disagree with you.
Thank you, and I understand that they're doing some of those things. I'll bet the Orangeville Agricultural Society think that they're doing the stuff too. So Fred, I would agree with you. They are doing some of those things. But if they turn their focus to becoming also an event center, then that's the issue that I'm bringing up. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the gallery? Seeing none, is anyone online with a question? Andrew's name popped up, but I don't think he's got a question. Okay, that brings us to written questions in advance.
We have several that have been submitted in advance, Your Worship. So the first question is, having filed a complaint after 5 p.m. where the Ram Rodeo or the OAS issued a fine for violating our noise bylaw on June 7th.
I don't know that there's been a charge laid in this. And there was the possibility that the Ram Rodeo was going to be canceled altogether or could not get a contract with the OAS. They made some assurances that they would go maybe 15, 20 minutes beyond 5 o'clock, and they obviously did not follow that on day one. On day two, I gather there was an inspector out, and I received, in any event, I received no complaints on day two. So I think it's, and we're in this transitional period between an old bylaw that is completely unenforceable to something that we hope to have greater success with. So if we were to lay charges, it would be on the basis of the older bylaw, and it would be on the basis of decibels and measurement of decibels, and clearly we are not set up or equipped to do that. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, can I say? I think we also have to be reminded that once a complaint has been made and things are underway, that we're not privy to their privacy issues and their legal issues, and there has to be some trust involved. And because you're right, we're in the middle of changing the bylaw and so on, and we have one that is still in force, and they clearly violated it. But I don't know that it is appropriate for us to answer the question in public as to whether charges and so on have been laid, right? Except to say that once a complaint is made, we have a staff that is working diligently and doing their best to follow up on all complaints, and if it is appropriate, the ball gets rolling.
And to add to that, at the point at which information is filed with the provincial court, that does become public knowledge, but not until that point. Fred.
So the next question, Your Worship, also relates to the noise events specifically. Has the OAS entered, have they applied for an exemption for the monster truck all-out event that is scheduled for October 18th?
I wouldn't know.
So, Your Worship, no, we've not received any application for an exemption to the noise bylaw for any events planned at the OAS.
I would make one observation, though, and that is if you go to the OAS website, the only future event that they advertise is the Fall Fair. It's only through some fairly creative sleuthing that our residents are finding out about these events that are being booked. So our residents are at a bit of a disadvantage knowing when these events are occurring, unless they're very gifted in terms of the use of Google. Fred?
Okay. So, Your Worship, I do want to also point out, so this question specifically talks about the monster truck all-out event. Now, of course, as is known, our bylaw has a prohibition on amplified sound. Our bylaw also has a prohibition on the operation of any motor vehicle other than on a highway. And that's the key point here, other than on a highway. And that is after 1900, so 7 p.m. Okay, so so that's Section 9 of Schedule B of our current bylaw. So before 1900, the operation of motor vehicles on other than highways, i.e. what sounds like a all-out truck event, in itself is not a violation of the current noise bylaw.
Until it goes beyond that time.
Until it goes beyond 1900 or amplified sound goes beyond 1700.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, because that has been raised a number of times. Next question.
The last question is from a member in the audience. Mr. Kaiser, do you want to take this one over personally?
Good morning. Morning, Doug.
So Doug Kaiser, Island Lake. So similar to Mr. Simpson's feedback, which we'll come back to on racing. So my question was related to the circus, and will the town be looking for an exemption from the circus on dirt bike racing? Because I believe, if I read the noise bylaw under general prohibitions 2.1, Mr. Simpson mentioned the Highway Traffic Act, but what about the general prohibitions? It says racing of a motor vehicle is strictly prohibited at all times. And the monster truck, just following up on that previous question, none of those vehicles would ever make a highway traffic being permitted by the OPP. These are massive trucks exhausting massive amounts of sound. So why are we even talking about that as far as a comparison?
So just to clarify, I was referring to Schedule B of our noise bylaw.
Yes.
That has an item in it that says the operation of a motor vehicle
Right.
off of a road is restricted on its noise after 1900. So
Right, but you
not
gave-
referring to the Highway Traffic Act.
But you gave the impression that a monster truck operating on private property, racing an engine, is permitted.
Sure, because it's a motorized vehicle by definition of the noise bylaw, and it's not operating on a highway, it's operating on private property. So therefore, it would be subject to that prohibition after 1900.
Well, what about,
I get
This-
it, the bylaw appears to have some discrepancies in that it says this is prohibited, but notwithstanding that, these items are prohibited during these scheduled times.
so Mr.
So I
Simpson,
get
you're
that
saying
difficulty.
any member of the public in Mono may go out and purchase a monster truck and start racing and running over vehicles on their own private property. That's what you're saying is permitted.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting that the bylaw is probably written, not necessarily for monster trucks, but the owners of dirt bikes, right? Who may want to use those dirt bikes on their own property.
And-
As an example, and again,
Right.
I wasn't around with the town when the bylaw was written, so I get it, it's interpretive.
And I have no issue with that, but this isn't somebody on, for pleasure or for recreation. These are events that are, ends up being a commercial event for profit. So this isn't a private property owner.
Our bylaw doesn't make those kind of differentiations, unfortunately, and the discrepancy that you're raising is once again proof positive why we need a new bylaw. Because it's just too much ambiguity at the present time.
And a lot of focus has been, back to Ms. Hoag's question online, when we refer to the bylaw isn't enforceable in court, I understand that. There are definitely some issues with the ability to enforce it in court. But how about a simple letter from the town of Mono that informs the OAS that they violated our noise bylaw? Why is all the focus on simply the ability to fine an individual? Because you've heard the OAS present to this council saying, we are unaware of any complaints for the last 2 years. We haven't been fined or notified by the town of Mono of any violation. So the individuals, the town residents, file these complaints and they go, as Mrs. Hoag is saying, the complaint ends up going nowhere.
At the risk of treading into territory of the clerk and his administration of the noise bylaw, I think it's fair to say that the OAS is now acutely aware of their obligations vis-a-vis noise. And they accept that they are the host of events that could result in not only the event organizers being charged, but the OAS itself being co-charged. So I agree with you. We leave the implementation of the noise bylaw to our staff. And as Councillor Davey pointed out, we don't get involved in the the court process or the process leading up to a court process. But I think our clerk has heard you, and I've always felt that individuals should be warned prior to the anvil coming down. So I agree with you. But we'll pursue it, not to worry. Okay, if there's no other questions, we are into our delegations, and my apologies, we're running about 15 minutes late, and our first delegation is the Chief of the Shelburne and District Fire Department, Chief Pratt, if you'd like to come up, and welcome to Mono Council.
Good morning. Thank you, Your Worship, for allowing me to present to council. I did a annual report just for our fire board and for obviously the 5 municipalities that we provide service to, just to give them a better understanding as to our department and exactly what the services we provide. So if it's all right with you, Your Worship, I'll just go through page by page and sure, yeah, I don't plan to take up much of your time. I know Councillor Nix has a short leash on me, so. So as a fire chief and being in the service for as many years as I have, it astonishes me the number of fire fatalities we have in our province year after year. So the reason I put page 2 in this is it's a statement from the Ontario Fire Marshal John Pegg, just kind of, again, outlining the large number of fire fatalities. And you would think with technology and everything else, they should be going down because we're building safer buildings and, we're doing more public awareness. But unfortunately, the statistics aren't showing that. So that's basically just a letter from the fire marshal. The second page is just kind of a high-level highlights. I'm just going to try and minimize this so you can see the entire page. So we responded, it just talks about the number of emergencies we responded to. I guess we always, in a fire department, you focus on the number of fires you're responding to, and not surprisingly, that number seems to go down year after year, but obviously our top 2 are motor vehicle collisions and some type of alarm activation, whether it be a commercial alarm, residential alarm, CO alarm. Our staff, Nicole is our admin assistant. She does a fabulous job with finding grants throughout various opportunities. So We were able to purchase an SCBA fill station. We got a firehouse grant for some gas monitoring equipment. We got an extractor to clean our gear and dry our gear. So we were very successful last year in finding grants to improve the equipment that we have in the station. We obviously want to pay homage to the board members that volunteer their time to help guide the department. And then again, our valued staff, to thank them for their hours of dedication that they put in. I'm not going to go through, but every fire department has a vision, mission, and values that they follow, that they try and use as their guiding light each and every day. Again, just the number of incidents I already mentioned. Vehicle accidents and alarms are kind of our top two. Mutual aid calls and medical kind of come in at 3 and 4 based on last year's incidents. The town of Shelburne is our largest calls for service, and then it breaks down the other 4 municipalities that we provide service to. The other would be probably more of a Dundalk, for example, that we respond into Dundalk with mutual aid. I always try and look at to see if there's any trends when you look at our incidents. So there's really nothing that jumped out at me in terms of the incidents by month, the day of the week, or the time of day. I think you can see that time of day, there's a bit of a peak at the lunch hour and dinner hour, which is typically related to cooking. People are at home and you have cooking incidents. But again, nothing really that jumped out at me. I think next year, for example, with the ice storm, that'll skew the calls for service of that for that month, for that 24-hour period. We again break it down just to kind of show trends for the 5 municipalities that we provide service to. Just again to look to see if there's anything that jumps off the page, which nothing. It's pretty consistent year after year. Obviously, I think there's a slight increase just with as population grows, the calls for service grow. Again, the 5-year incident summary. Again, just to look to see if there's anything that jumps off the page. Medical incidents in 2023 were quite high. I'm not 100% sure of that, if it had to do with COVID or what the number of calls of service were. It could largely be part of the levels of service from EMS themselves, whether we needed more help. But again, you can see the calls, traditionally are increasing year over year, but nothing that jumps out. And again, these calls, obviously we didn't break down every individual call, but just tried to capture the cluster them in terms of the main groupings. This was more of a kind of a passion of mine, just being new to a fire board in our service. I tried to break it down just to show for myself and for the general public, I guess, and for our fire board, the number of incidents in our response area in terms of each municipality. So if I look at Mono, for example, we responded to 31 incidents in our response area. The GIS tells us there's 1,889 residents in that area, 311 residential buildings, 424 properties, and that's 19% of your municipality that we cover. So I did that for all the municipalities just as interest. Cost share, as we are well aware, is always a topic of conversation at our fire board meetings. And again, it's just to provide the fire board members and the members of council just to show the breakdown year after year, to show the percentages. And, ultimately, I guess, the bottom right-hand corner is basically our budget on an annual basis, and it shows, that it's increasing and how it's being funded. We've done a lot of training in 2024, obviously with the mandatory certification piece coming down as we work towards July 1st of 2026 and July 1st of 2028. Just to highlight the number of topics. So our staff meet every Thursday for 2 hours to train, and then we have specialty teams and, the odd specialty training on Saturdays that are above and beyond. We'll talk briefly about the Ontario Fire College closing down and the provinces. I don't want to use the word downloading because that's a bit of a swear word in government, but downloading to regional training centers. So Caledon, for example, was one of your partners, just opened a regional training center this year, and we'll be able to use them. So instead of sending staff to Gravenhurst, for example, at the Ontario Fire College, now we have a working relationship with the town of Caledon, and we can send our staff there. So again, it just talks about, the different courses our staff have taken, all working towards certification. Public education is the first line of defense. So that's always important for any fire department. If you can prevent it from happening, then obviously we don't need to have the emergency response. So it just talks about some of the programs that we followed. We do follow largely the Office of the Fire Marshal's public education. So they have annual events, obviously, very familiar with Fire Prevention Week and the 12 Days of Christmas, et cetera. Saved by the Beep is a new campaign where they have Smoke Alarm Day, where we're trying to get everyone in the public to test their smoke alarms that day. We do try and investigate origin and cause, and if there's any reason by all of the fires that we attend. So that's just a list of the fires that we investigated, and again, the potential cause determination. Again, we look at this data just to see if we can identify trends, and if we do identify those trends, then we can focus our public education efforts to mitigate them. I always believe, as a leader of an organization, we should always have a goal year after year. So I've kind of broke down, I won't go through them all for you, but kind of the different departments we have within the fire service, our admin, our public education, training and operations. Just something that, you put pen to paper, and this is what the staff is going to focus on 2025 to try and improve the levels of service we provide. So that's really, obviously, equity, diversity, and inclusion is certainly a major initiative. I firmly believe that your department should be representative of the people that we serve. So certainly we look to try and do everything involvement in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion within our staff. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I can't imagine that Fred would have any, but I'm going to defer to Fred, and then Melinda is our representative on your board.
Chief Pratt, thanks for that presentation. And you've covered some of the issues that I want to ask you in a question. I notice every year when we sit here and we do our budget that the cost of providing fire service is one of the fastest growing items in our budget. For example, in 2015, our total budget for fire service from 4 different departments was $767,000. 10 years later, 2025, this year, our budget from those same 4 departments is almost $1.7 million. That's more than double what it was 10 years ago. That, by my rough mathematical accounting, is about an annual increase of 12% a year. And of course, when we do our budget, this sometimes raises some eyebrows. I wonder if you could address the question as to why are the cost of providing fire services going up so quickly, and what does the future look like in terms of fire service costs?
Sure, thank you, Councillor. I think the fire service, so I started in '98, so I've been around a while, and I've seen lots of changes in the service. And I think largely the fire department was always, we do the best we can with the tools that we're given, and we were pretty untouchable. And in 2009, there was an incident in Meaford that the Ministry of Labor came in and did an investigation on a near miss. There was 2 firefighters who were injured in a fire, and they laid charges. They laid charges to the fire department, the fire chief, and the training officer, and it was about a 3-year legal battle, and it was a paradigm shift, I think, for everybody in the fire service. So just to think that, we could be charged or we could be held accountable, and we're trying to do, the best we can. So I think from that, what happened was there was a bit of change in I'll say the legislation and liability piece. So the fire marshal's office used to provide, we'll call it a curriculum. So they used to provide the fire department. So this is how you train. this is the curriculum, and, you know, they had sign-offs and everything, and they kind of were the overarching body. And I think they realized that, you know, and I used the downloading word, you know, this is an expensive venture, you know. We're providing a curriculum that there's already a recognized standard, and I've said to the board many times about the NFPA standard, which is a national standard. So I believe, based on, you know, the change of the environment, et cetera, the fire marshal's office decided to, you know, take that, the function of their job and put it on to the municipalities. So kind of downloading it using the NFPA standard. So that's when I say the legislation piece. I think it was around 2016 when they started talking about community risk assessment and mandatory certification. Those were kind of two of the topics that were up in the air at that time. And I think there was a lot of pushback on the certification piece, so the province decided the community risk assessment. Again, we all know that was a cost associated to all the municipalities. So then that was done, and now we kind of have the second piece of the puzzle is the certification piece, which again was downloaded to say, you know, all your staff shall be certified for the levels of service you perform. So I think the legislation and liability piece was kind of pushed down on the municipalities, which there was a cost to. The second thing that jumps out at me, being in the service as long as I have, is the modernization of the service. You know, if you look at what cars were like 10 years ago, you know, with the safety aspects and everything, well, you look at what our equipment, how it's changed in the last 10 years. When I was in the service, we would go to a car accident and we'd be using come-alongs and cribbing and stuff to try and extricate people. Now they have a hand tool that's about that big, that's either a cutter or a spreader, and they can go in and, you know, extricate somebody much more quickly. So that come-along piece, which might have been $100, now you're having a tool that's $40,000, right? So I think the modernization of the service has, you know, in terms of the equipment, has a large value to it. And I think back, you know, in the early days, you know, we were a fire department. You know, you went to fires, you put out house fires, grass fires, or whatever. Most fire departments now are changing their name, right, to Fire and Emergency Services, because we don't just respond to fires anymore. We respond to all hazards. You know, if you don't know what to do, what do? You phone the fire department, and, you know, they'll bring people and then mitigate. And I think the number of responses and the types of responses changes. You know, the most recent one that jumps out at me, you know, we've talked about mandatory certification. We've talked about water rescue, ice rescue, and swift water rescue. Well, now the latest and greatest is flood rescue. You know, the Mississaugas and Torontos of the world have had people that get trapped in flood water, you know, after a rainstorm. You know, how do we safely get them out of, you know, their vehicle or get them to dry land, et cetera. So here's another standard that's being thrust upon us because, you know, this is a request, it's an emergency, it's a level of service. So those are, you know, legislation, liability, and modernization comes with the technological advancement in the equipment and the tools, but it comes also with the number of responses that we handle. And I'll always say, and I typically don't say this publicly, but if you put fire in front of it, you probably charge 3 times what it's probably worth.
And just to, you don't see any easing up over the next few years? In particular, since you've told the fire board that there are deficiencies in their current fire hall, that, in fact, I think you've said we might be in violation of some parts of labor laws, that we have to do something about that fire hall. And I know it's going to be expensive, but anyway, back to the main point. When we do budget for 2026, can we anticipate, again, another large increase in firefighting costs?
Not to shoot myself in the foot, but I don't want to say a large increase. I think the fire hall is a different animal. The fire hall is, if you look at modern fire halls today, you know, there's diesel exhaust extraction. There is clean rooms to, you know, clean bunker gear. There's clean rooms to do SCBA, you know, to try and protect the worker. We don't have those. So yes, I don't want to say that we're in violation of any laws, but we're certainly not doing what I would call best practice. But I think, yeah, the fire, like especially an increasing department, you know I've come to the board and said I would want to increase us by 2 staff each and every year because, you know, the number of calls, and we talked about we talked about the number of staff that should be on scene to safely mitigate an incident. So yeah, I definitely think there's going to be an increase. I'd like to think it's not going to be as substantial that, you know, you're going to be upset with me.
Thank you for that response. And I would just say for the public record, since I've been on this fire board for 15 years and you've been with us for 9 months, that to date, I'm very impressed with the job you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Linda, did you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you very much, Chief Pratt. That, to come and, it's not that this isn't a published document for people, but to actually have you come and go through it and so on, I think will really get the word out to our residents, which is that our services that Mono provides for our residents is exemplary. And volunteer, right? Like that is the key. One of the reasons why we want to increase is because the staffing is because just because there's a fire call made doesn't mean that we have people when you're have a volunteer service doesn't mean that there are going to be people who are available to come, right? So that if you have the more people, then the more likely. So the costs are going to have to go up. But this was very helpful, I think, for our residents. So thank you very, very much. And no, I don't have any questions. Things are costing more. The expectation is higher. And interesting that you point out one of the first things that you said that was discouraging or whatever is that people still die in a fire. But it is remarkable that we expect that we really can control everything, right? We do our best to mitigate, but we can't make things not happen, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for your dedication.
Any other questions or comments? I just have one in conclusion, and that is, this has been a theme for me for a number of years, and that is the risk and possibility of fires on lands and our forests and provincially owned land, in particular Mono Cliffs Park, and I think your catchment area includes a good portion of Mono Cliffs Park and certainly the county forest. Can you give us some kind of description of the sort of training that your folks have fighting that kind of fire? And does it make you nervous that the province does not have a fire emergency plan for its lands? Rather, they default to the notion of local departments and mutual aid being the solution?
Well, as you may or may not know, I spent the last 2.5 years in the north. So I am familiar with the MNRF and the response agreements they have with the municipal fire departments up there. We are not in a fire zone. We are south of the fire zone, so we really don't get a lot of support from the province and the Ministry of Natural Resources on that front. I think, and Chief BYLAWS spoke about it when he presented in front of the group, there's not really a standard for wildland firefighting, but we can take the materials and the training program that the Ministry of Natural Resources uses for their full-time and summer staff that fight wildland and urban inter-race fires, and we can teach our staff that. So I think equipment-wise, we're in pretty good shape. We talk about it at a county chiefs level, you know, of a joint response, how we would respond to those. The other 4 departments that we would work with have, you know, ATVs and those type of things. So our training is more on water supply and portable pumps and that, you know, obviously how do you get the water in Mono Cliff Parks, you know? Okay, well, we would use what's called a Mark III pump, and we would set it up here, and we would draft water out of the water source, and we would, you know, if we had to, we would lay thousands of feet of hose to get, you know, to the incident. With wildland and urban interface fires, you kind of want to circle them, and then you go back and, you know, because it's in the roots potentially and in stumps, et cetera, then you have to go back, and it's really hard, laboring, intensive work to get all those, you know, ashes, et cetera, out. But I think the municipalities are well equipped. Unfortunately, there's no real funding for that. I know there has been some community grants, and I believe Chief BYLAWS spoke to that. And I did put in for the Shelburne and District Fire Department for wildland firefighting equipment, and unfortunately we didn't get it. But you know, you're never going to be at the level you want to be, but you certainly can aspire to be. So I think we're in a good position if we did have a wildland urban interrace fire, that we could have the adequate number of resources and manpower, and I think everybody's trained to the same level, so we would be able to mitigate it.
Well, notwithstanding the fact we're not in a traditional zone, as you describe, I don't think Shelburne, Nova Scotia thought it was in a zone either, and we know what happened there, you know, ironically with that name.
Yes.
So it's top of mind for a lot of people in the town who live in proximity to vast supply of combustible material. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, 100%, I agree.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, the mayor, for bringing that up, because I think it's a concern for many of us. Unfortunately, forest fires really like dried coniferous forests.
Yes, sir.
We have a number of patches of those. In fact, I have one on my property. Do you have access to water bombers or anything beyond working on your flood?
I would think we would, you know, in a dire emergency, probably through the province, we would be able to get them, but it's not like, as I say, the fire zones where they have a dedicated MNRF office that has dedicated water bombers, helicopters, staff. I think we could go through the province, through what we call the PEOC, Provincial Emergency Operations Center, and request that, but they wouldn't be readily available, in my opinion. They'd probably, and I can't remember where the province is broken up into zones. I'm just trying to think what the southern kind of border is.
French River is sometimes cited as a demarcation.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Without the map in front of me, I can't remember how many zones, but, you know, if that's the demarcation, then everybody north of that throughout the province has a fire zone and has dedicated resources to it, where us in Southern Ontario, we don't have that. I'm sure we could, but it would be arduous, I would suggest, to justify it and get the participation.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your service and your report and the great work that you do, and your members of the fire department. It's tough work and sometimes not as well as appreciated as it should be, and we certainly value your attendance here today to present the report.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next delegation is Mayor White from Melancthon, having to do with the Strata Aggregates ARA application.
Morning.
Welcome.
We'll see how good I multitask now. I have to turn pages, talk, and work the mouse. Unless somebody's going to do that for me. So thanks for seeing us this morning, Your Worship, members of council, staff, members of the public, and those who are watching. We want to come and talk to you about Strata Aggregates and their potential quarry application in the Township of Melancthon. For those of you who are old or long-timers like myself, you might remember that I sat here with former Mayor Bill Hill a little over a decade ago talking about a whole different aggregate application. And if we're going to talk about one 10 years from now, it'll be somebody else sitting here then too. So I wanted to bring some information to you. I'm going to turn it over to Ruth Plowright, one of my counselors, and Bill Nielsen, who's also here as a counselor, are joining me today. Just before we advance into the next slide, this is the area we're talking about, the area you see in green on this slide. The intersection of note that people can sort of center it by is County Road 17 and County Road 124 in sort of south central area of Melancthon. So we have a short presentation for you. I'm going to turn it over to Ruth, who's going to give a bit of a brief overview.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us time to update you on what's happening in our neck of the woods. I'll do the brief overview for you. Strata
I'm not sure how we
Aggregates
move ahead.
filed an application for a quarry with the Ministry of Natural Resources on January 31st, 2025. The proposed quarry would be located on the land that you see up there. And it's zoned extractive industrial M2 and located at the west part of Lot 13, Concession 3. It is currently an active gravel pit. The gravel pit's current license allows for extraction of 1.25 million tons annually, and the proposed quarry, so that would be blasting and going under the water table, license would allow for extraction of 2 million tons annually. Strata Aggregate advised council during its delegation on May 1st that it will be filing step 2 of its application within the Ministry of Natural Resources in June 2025. We haven't seen anything yet. We're waiting any day to get it. The 60-day consultation period begins when the public notice and agency circulations are complete. Council is unable to take a position on this application until it is formally received and reviewed in detail. Both the public and council will have the opportunity to provide feedback through the Aggregate Resource Act notification and consultation process.
So how am I advancing the slides here, folks? Can somebody? Oh, there we go, look at
There we
that.
go.
How easy for that. I almost failed on my main job here. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Aggregate Resources Act process, which is essentially a 4-step process. Anybody who's been on council in Dufferin County for a long time will know this process a little bit. Essentially where we are right now is step 1 of the process. In our municipality, sort of a first of its kind arrangement between NDACT, which is one of the large community groups that fought against the mega quarry a decade or more ago, worked with Strata to sort of funnel the application down to a submittable application. The agreement between NDACT and Strata, I'm not sure exactly at what point that is at the moment. It's likely coming to its natural conclusion at the moment. But it leaves us in step 1, which is essentially where Strata has submitted their application for a reviewiness assessment at the Ministry of Natural Resources. That is a short window, 25 days precisely, where the ministry will determine if all reports they require are submitted. Strata has voluntarily put a hold on that review until some issues their staff and NDAC's reviewers have been addressed. We're not sure where those are yet. We may find out tonight. NDACT is hosting a public meeting in the Township Melancthon at the Hornings Mills Hall at 7. If anybody wants to attend, you're more than welcome to do so. The next step is sort of where the public, members of council, other public bodies and entities get involved, and that's step 2, where we work on public consultation. So once the application is deemed complete, the public has essentially 60 days to submit objection notices to Strata. Strata then has a short term to confirm whether they can address those objections or whether they cannot. And if they cannot, then the application would move to step 3. See, I have people for that now, so that works for me.
I was just slow there.
So once we move into step 3, essentially there is a short process window where Strata will determine whether objections are valid or not. They will work with people to either withdraw or continue to confirm their objections. Those objections then will be given about a 2-year period where Strata will have the obligation to try to work with those objectors to address those objections. If during that process they cannot, at the end of that term, that's when Strata can ask the OLT to make a ruling, or the LPAT to make a ruling on the application, or the minister or any party can refer that application to the Land Planning Tribunal for a decision. Once that stage is over, it takes us into step 4, which is essentially where the minister will make a recommendation to approve the license or not approve the license. It's important to note during this process that if you haven't objected in the early days, then you really don't have a lot of standing. So it's important for people who want to put in objections or notes to that application, to do so early in the process. And that's why we're here. We're not here to ask you to object. We're not here to tell you why you should object. We're here to bring it to your attention that this is happening, that you're a neighbor close within the county, that there are reasons why you may want to be concerned, and to make yourselves aware of the application. All of the documents submitted as part of the application through Strata are on our website. You can find them on our website. Our planning staff is beginning the process, the internal process of peer reviewing and whatnot. And once that works its way through that process, those documents will be available as well. But that will likely be after that 60-day window is closed for the general public and other entities. For why would Mono potentially be interested? Well, as Councillors Melancthon and Deputy Mayor Nix would know, this application is inside the NVCA borders. That Conservation Authority sort of regulates that area. And while sort of the borders of conservation authorities are not done on underwater resources, which is sort of what one of the main concerns is in this one, you know, it is important to be aware that the water that starts in Melancthon flows through all of the neighboring municipalities. So it will have downstream effects, or could potentially have serious downstream effects. That's why we're asking you and your staff to be aware of it, to make sure you review it and comment appropriately if you feel the need. Given that, happy to take any questions, should you have any. And I suspect Deputy Mayor Nix would.
Yes. And then Councillor Davey maybe first.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I read it and I wasn't quite sure, so it is always, it's valuable to give information in different formats. It's helpful. But if it's the Nottawasaga, the water's flowing the other way,
Yes.
right? So we're neighbors, but it would be more if we were having the mega situation that we would affect you
Yes.
versus your thing affecting us, but knowing that this will affect neighbors who are downstream, right?
So and if through you, Mayor, you're correct in the Nottawasaga above ground watershed. But the sort of the boundaries of this application, they look to be making, to extracting limestone up to 200 meter or 200 feet below the water table. So the underground aquifers are not necessarily flowing directly the way of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority or the Nottawasaga River, right? So that's sort of more along the lines of where we should be concerned. Through the course of this application, they look to be pumping, managing, and re-injecting into river systems in our area, which flow all ways from Melancthon, including the Boyne, the Payne, and other rivers. They look to be managing 6 million liters of water a day. So that is probably part of your concern. Another concern that's important to the north part of the county of Dufferin and Mona Township as well, as much as we've talked about Highway 10, would be a strong increase in the number of trucks that would be coming out of Melancthon as a result of this. You notice in the document the change in licensed amount from 1.25 million tons to 2 million tons doesn't on its face seem to be a lot, but you have to temper that with knowing that currently they don't regularly come anywhere near the 1.25 million tons. If this turns into a quarry, the belief is that they would be very close to the 2 million tons.
So could I have just a follow-up? So
and then Fred.
then for the community, for the bad things for the community that want us to fight it there's multiple. But what about their argument about the good things? So if you know, Fred Flintstone quarry, whatever, is it an employment improvement for the community or those kinds of things? Or you've already been digging out the gravel, and so now just to blast deeper in to get the stone is all kind of different machinery but same manpower, and it's not really going to affect, or is it? Do you know?
Well, there will be some additional employment in that area, but not a lot. I mean, it's currently an already existing sand and gravel pit, right? So I would suspect that their workforce might double, maybe a little bit more, but it's already a very small workforce. The work increase, or the main increase in employment, will likely be in trucking, right? Which in itself creates some of the problems downstream, right? It's, and while I appreciate your reference to the Flintstones, I was a big watcher of Dino and Bam Bam when I was a child. Quarrying today it comes with its own set of challenges. There are positives to any municipality and for a quarry, really. I mean, there are. Municipalities are the biggest user, or one of the biggest users of aggregate, right? We need that to grow. We need it for our roads. We need it but I mean, it has to be or should be managed responsibly. One of the things I've spoken about over my career in politics at length, and I'm happy to do so anytime, is the need for better regulation, better licensing requirements, better siting of aggregate applications. There are royalties, you guys as hosts of a couple of aggregate applications as well. There are royalties paid on the tonnage that comes out of an aggregate operation. On its face, that seems like a great thing, but essentially they're token, right? There's not very much. It doesn't add a lot of value. Aggregate operations are labor intensive, they're road intensive, there's a lot to them. And there's, if you look at the cost and benefit analysis, it's tilted heavily in favor of the operation, not the municipality or the residents, right?
Fred and then Elaine.
Mayor White, or Darren as I usually call you, I need some help with my memory. I'm old and my memory's not very good. A decade ago, when the mega quarry was an application, as I remember it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you and I were both sitting on the board of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority at that time, the key intervener was the Conservation Authority, in the sense that it took the applicant's technical documents, it hired a consultant, it reviewed those technical documents, and as I remember it, in the end of the day, the applicant walked away because there was some criticisms of the technical documents. I think the word was all the technical studies were like silos. They weren't looking at the whole picture. Now, that's my memory, but here's the question. And so when you answer the question, if some of my memory is wrong, you correct me. Under the current situation, because the Conservation Authorities Act has been changed, my guess or my understanding, so conservation authorities now can really only comment on applications that have to do with hazard lands. My guess is, in this case, the NVCA, I was going to say, would not be allowed. That may be too strong, but it could not play the same role it did a decade ago with the mega quarry. In fact, I'm not sure what role the Conservation Authority can play now, because it's limited in terms of what it's allowed to comment on. Have I got any, well, I'm asking you this as a question, so please respond and tell me if I've got any of this wrong.
Not really. No, you don't. And I mean, your memory is better than you think it is. I mean, that's essentially part of where it was a decade or more ago with the Highland quarries. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just that report from the NBC. I actually referenced that report last night when we spoke to Shelburne. There's, a part of why Highlands withdrew was the strong local opposition. Part of it was strong technical work done by groups like the NBCA and other groups. Part of it was, I even think part of it was investor, wariness, because investors have been shoveling money into this application for decades, and it was going nowhere. And you're right, the rules have changed around what conservation authorities can comment on, which is going to change the dynamic of how they review this. But there are hazard lands immediately adjacent to that application. If you ask a different deputy mayor, he'll be able to tell you that. There are some very sensitive areas immediately around where this property is currently. So you know, with it being inside their watershed, they will have the ability to comment on it through that. Not as fulsome as they did back in the migratory debate, but again, that report that was created by the NVCA is still sitting on a shelf. Much of the technical work will still be relevant. Much of the technical work of other studies, like the AMOT studies, some of the municipal work that we did back in that day will be relevant as well, because while this is a different parcel of land, it's very close to where the mega quarry would have been. So a lot of those things will carry over.
Thank you for clarifying.
Elaine?
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, and nice to see you here, although I'm, on the other end of the screen, but glad to be here. Anyway, there will be, just to reiterate, there will be an impact in terms of the increased number of trucks, yet again, on our roads, impacting our travelers, our residents, and for very little benefit to us, unless we can get gravel closer to home, like our healthcare, closer to home, and at a better price. Like, there needs to be something in it for us, so I don't know how we negotiate that. And so also monies to fund our road maintenance. So I don't know, those are things that I would want, but anyway, we'll see. And I want to understand too how we feel, given that there's been some new bills released from Queen's Park at mounting a case to refuse this application when the province could probably just say, I don't care what you say, we're just going to do it. I could just say that in terms of, recent changes or recent bills allowing, to override municipal authority and desires. So just a comment about that. Any thoughts?
I think Councillor Capes, you're referring to Bill 5 and the province's ability to declare a zone of doom or consequence or whatever you want to call it.
Economic importance, unleash the economy.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Capes. I mean, some good points made in there. Again, that was brought up last night when we talked to Shelburne, Bill 5, and how this would affect that. And I mean, the answer to that question is nobody knows yet. Most of the regulation that has to be written to support the goals of Bill 5 has not been written yet. Until that's written, it's hard to determine how exactly this could affect it. But, I mean, we all are aware and we have some experience directly with being so close to Dundalk about how, MZOs can be brought to play, and special economic zones, I mean, is just another word for MZOs, I mean, really, at the end of the day. So, we're watching that. We have to be sort of cognizant of where that potentially could take us. Absolutely. And with regards to aggregate close to home, I totally agree. Ironically, and it is ironic, and it's not for, and I don't want anybody to, I want to be very clear, I don't want anybody to read anything into this statement with regards to this application and what I'm about to say. But ironically, we don't use Strata's gravel in Melancthon. That is mostly a function of they are operators who bid on our tenders for gravel. Generally, when they bid from Strata, for some reason I don't understand why, they're not generally competitive. We have always managed to get our gravel cheaper from outside. So, it's got nothing to do with the application or, close to home or not. It's strictly a cost thing, but, so, I mean, take that for what you want.
Yeah.
I'd just like to, go ahead.
I have a few questions for you. It's a simple one. What's this? I can see the map, thank you. What's the size of that?
It's about a little bit over 300 acres,
300.
all in, yeah.
And,
For comparison, the mega quarry would have been 2,300 acres, fully done.
And the next question is, as you probably know, we use the aquifer that's.
Thank you, Melinda.
I beg your pardon?
They couldn't hear you.
We use an aquifer which extends from the west, and that's for the south of Mono, the Cardinal Woods area. We have a couple of wells there. Is that the same aquifer which is affected?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that, but I can look at that and see.
Do you know, Matt? Is that the same aquifer as we have for the Cardinal Woods wells?
It'll likely be close. The Annabelle aquifer, I don't know if it extends that high.
I'm not sure either. It
I'm
extends.
not sure. I'd have to confirm that.
Okay. NDAC and Strata have been talking for some time. Could you just sort of capsulize that, summarize what's been going on?
Through you, Mayor. I mean, I don't want to speak for NDAC, but essentially, I mean, the township were part of the agreement with NDAC and Strata. Our position, our part of that was just as a facilitator. It wasn't to take a position either way. But essentially what it is, and you know, anybody who's been sitting at council tables for a long time will know that within the consultancy sector, there has been mergers and amalgamations, and it's very hard to find somebody now to give you an opinion. NDAC was having the same issues with that. So they tried to come up with a unique agreement, whereas they would work together to try to bring forth an application that everybody could agree on from the beginning. And at the point where their interests diverged, that's where the agreement would end. I believe they're at that point now. But as much as I don't want to take a position, I would say probably that some good work would have been done with that work from an oppositional group and a proponent. Some good work would have come out of that. I don't know on its face how much a difference that would make, but it was certainly groundbreaking at the time. You know, where that'll lead in the coming weeks, months, and years, I don't know.
This may be inappropriate, but I think people saw NDAC as sanctioning it if they came to an agreement. Is that fair to say?
I mean, there are people who think that. There are people who see the benefit of trying to create a strong application as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think NDAC will have to address those concerns amongst their ranks. We're not members of NDAC, obviously. You know, none of our council are. But I think that you know, they were faced with application. I mean, these things cost a lot of money at the end of the day. It costs a lot of money to mount an oppositional campaign to an application like this. And having just come out of the mega quarry debate, you know, it's sometimes difficult to get people rallied again for another fight, for lack of a better word. So I think they took a position that they believed would be in the best interest of the municipality. Mm-hmm. I applaud them for what they tried to do. Mm-hmm. Where that takes us in the days to come, I don't know.
I thank you for showing us through the steps of this application. That's quite helpful. At what step would your council take a position?
Once we move to step 2, that's where public opinion and objections are allowed to be sort of put forward. We will likely submit an objection at that point, but it will be sort of an overarching objection because our work on peer reviews and studies will not be done yet. So, you know, we won't have the opportunity to be very specific about it. But, I mean, there are some concerns and questions that we would have now. They may be able to be addressed through that process. They may not. I don't know. But we will likely be, like everybody else, putting in an objection during the 60-day window, which is supposedly sometime this month. Strata has indicated that they will move to stage 2 sometime in June, and we're running out of June, so we'll see.
Okay. Just a final comment. Thanks for coming here. I think it's great to have you present this for our information. Thank you. And a possible action.
Yeah, it's a great practice. I'm usually on the side of the table.
We could trade places.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd just like to comment on the issue of the truck traffic.
Sure.
And obviously, there'll be some kind of study that Strata will prepare to indicate what the impact will be in the volume of trucks, number of trucks, whether they'll all be going down Highway 10, whether they'll be taking 89, various things like that. One element of this, which I think is really important, is the safety of those trucks. And anyone who is addicted to Facebook like I am will notice, and who has worked with the Caledon organization that is very much into truck safety and road safety generally, will know that it is a nightmare out there in terms of trucks that are not compliant with basic safety elements. What is troubling to me is that the nearest MTO inspection station is halfway down towards Brampton on Highway 10, and when you drive past it, there's never anyone there. So one consideration might be to insist upon an inspection station somewhere in Dufferin County to ensure that the trucks that are coming and going are in fact in safe working order.
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship. I mean, you and I and a couple of others at County Council have, I think, successfully beaten the drum to pieces on the Highway 10 safety piece. And you're right. I mean, the work Strata has done, the reports they've put forward, they're already on our website, so there is a traffic study there as well. So where those trucks travel, essentially the County Hall route is our road, which is a short piece. It's about 300 meters to a county road. And then it's County Road 17 through Masonville to County Road 124. So the Masonville intersection has been recently rebuilt by the county. It's still a very small intersection, very, not a lot of turning capabilities, not a lot of turning lanes. In fact, we put in a bit of a complaint with the county the other day because you can't even see the lines of where the lanes are at the moment. I mean, there's some potential there. Shelburne, one of their questions last night was about something else we've heard at the county often. People walking from the shopping at the corner of 124, 10, and 89 into the developments behind there, having to walk the shoulder of the highway. I mean, traffic is a concern.
Okay, I'm going to have one more question, and I'm going to have to move on to our next delegation. Elaine?
Well, I think it's sort of been answered. I forgot to ask you if we knew the route.
Yep.
So that will be that's part of the application, right?
Yep, that's the main truck route. That's the only truck capable roads in those areas, is 124 and 17.
Right, and then it goes across 89 and down?
Down 10.
Down 10, okay.
If it's going south, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Darren, and your colleague, and
Can I just point out one
absolutely.
thing? Sorry, you were asking about the water.
The mic.
You were asking about the water. So it affects the Pine, the Boyne, Grand, Humber, and Credit. And like, we're called headwaters. So Melancthon is like the birthplace of all the Great Lakes. That's where all the water flows into all the Great Lakes. So that's a big concern for our local people. Thank you. You're welcome.
Huge, and thank you very much, and it's appropriate that we get a heads up because we're all going to be impacted by this.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have Jennifer Payne is our next delegate, and does council want a short break, and then we can, 5 minutes?
Sure, we can take
5 minutes, but we're going to try and keep to or return to our original schedule if we can. Absolutely. Thank you. Because we have another delegation at 11.
We are back live.
Good morning again, and we're joined by Jennifer Payne, who is presenting the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan 2025 to 2028. And welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Creelman, members of council and staff. I'm pleased to be here with you today to bring you the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for the County of Dufferin. And I am Jennifer Payne. I'm Executive Director of Headwaters Communities in Action. I am also the co-chair of the integration table for community safety and well-being for the county, and I'm a Mono resident as well. So I'll give you some highlights for our presentation today. You have the full plan in your agenda package, so I won't spend too much time on the details, but I'm happy to get to questions and try to get you back on your schedule for the day. So this is a provincially mandated plan that came down in 2020 for each municipality to have a community safety and well-being plan. However, we're very used to this sort of work here in Dufferin through a community well-being report that had been done, led by HCIA since 2011. So we've been doing those community reports since issuing since 2012, 2016, and this is an evolution of that process. So we've been keeping the temperature on community well-being for some time. And we have a very strong network of community partners who integrate and collaborate together on metrics related to community well-being. So we have a 4-year plan coming out of our 2021 to 24. We're going into our 2025 to 28 plan now. This is a shared plan, again, for all of Dufferin County and for the lower tiers. We do have a framework, however, from the province, which is useful to, it basically outlines 4 layers of intervention, just to ensure that there is attention kept on upstream and social development layer measures, as well as incident response at the service delivery level. So there's guidance from the province as well to make our plans strengths-based, so to recognize the good work that's happening and the assets that we have in our communities and build off of those to address emerging needs, and also to focus on risk as well as protective factors to ensure that not all of our resources go into direct incident response and service delivery, but to try to predict and prevent some of those needs from coming. Again, we leverage community resources, and this particular plan has been approved by County Council in their May 8th meeting. You can see we have a long list of over 30 organizations, agencies, service delivery organizations, as well as our police, OPP, and community organizations as well involved with this integration table. For the development of the plan, we followed a process that included discussion and data gathering, a general public survey, followed by a data deep dive to analyze those results, as well as targeted outreach and data from the specific service providers as well. Then we moved into sense making and plan development with the integration table and circulated a draft for feedback. And our new plan involves 5 priority areas, each of which has a lead table. And we use existing planning tables where possible to address the specific priority areas. The plan is strengths-based, risk-focused, and involves integrated efforts. So the highlights from the general public survey, this is one of our best opportunities to get broad engagement on a wide range of indicators. The survey includes both self-reporting for people as well as perceptions and opinions. So, and a few questions on prioritizing different aspects of community safety and well-being. So it's really our best option that I'm aware of to do broad public engagement on a variety of areas. So that public survey was conducted between December 2023 and February 2024. We did have 607 total responses, and that gives us, our statisticians tell us, the confidence interval of 3.96, which we're told is very good. So even though it may not seem like a large number, the distribution of demographics that we received through the survey of respondents very well matched the census data, what the census is telling us about the demographic makeup of Dufferin County. So we were very pleased to see that our respondents matched to an impressive degree. So that gave us a high confidence interval. We're told anything under 5 is good. So we have a 3.96 confidence interval. So just highlighting Mono's response here, the survey responses as a proportion of the overall responses was down a little bit from 2020, but some of that is attributable to other towns doing better. We know that the survey was widely circulated, and we thank the town for your part in making sure that we got the survey out there. But a respectable 11.2% of the overall responses were from Mono. Punching a little under your weight as far as population proportion for the county, but still a respectable number. So I'll briefly go over the 5 priority areas that resulted in this community safety and wellbeing plan. Starting with community safety, housing and homelessness, mental health and well-being, family support, and food insecurity. I'm sure you'll see no surprises here. We're hearing from the same constituents, so there are a lot of issues that came up here that correlate with what you've been discussing just today in terms of community safety. The conclusion about community safety in this regard was really mainly a perception issue. So there was a perception in the community that crime was up, when in fact, by most measures, crime is down. And certainly we're a very safe community in respect to crime. However, the areas of concern are in road safety, mobility safety, and intimate partner violence. So those are the areas for focus. In terms of the structure of the report, so each area, a priority area, has a profile that outlines the current situation, what we'd heard through our consultations and data review, as well as the strengths and the risks that are observed by the lead tables. And then within the plan is what we'll do and what we aim to see. So those are our metrics, who is accountable for that area, the outcomes, the measures, and the actions that we intend to take. Now this will be followed by more detailed action plans, so we still have work to do on the action plans so we see and measure impact. So the lead tables for each area include the Dufferin OPP on behalf of detachment boards for the community safety priority. And there's an asterisk here because we have begun but not yet finished our work in developing deeper relationships with the individual detachment boards. We have new relationships with them, and we intend to continue to include them more in the implementation phase. Housing and homelessness. Oh, but we did have good involvement from the Dufferin detachment. Housing and homelessness, the lead table is the Dufferin County Equity Collaborative's Housing and Homelessness Work Group. For mental health and well-being, it's the Hills of Headwaters Ontario Health Team Mental Health and Addictions Community Working Group. But for family support, which is a new priority area that reflects sort of a broader integrated approach, is the Dufferin Child and Family Services as the lead table. And for food insecurity, there's a fairly new, I guess it's more than a year old now, but the Dufferin County Equity Collaborative has a Dufferin Food Access Subcommittee. One area I wanted to highlight this year, which is new from the previous plan, is more of a highlight on integrated efforts. So we recognize that there are still specific priority areas that require direct attention, but we really wanted to provide a more ambitious goal for our integration table. So to really focus on where we can work together to more strongly move forward the objectives across the priority areas. So we do have some specific outcomes and objectives for integration. Now, we know nothing happens in isolation. When you're in need, there's usually more than one thing going on, so we really want to acknowledge the intersection and interrelation between and amongst the different priority areas. And this slide just kind of gives a brief example of that, and I think it's best expressed through this quote from one of our members of our Voices with Lived Experience, and I'll just read it if you'll indulge me. "Living with food insecurity affects my health in so many ways. I constantly feel tired and weak because I'm not getting the nutrients I need. It also takes a toll on my mental health. The stress of not knowing if I will have enough to eat is overwhelming. I developed anxiety and depression, which makes it even harder to take care of myself and my family. It feels like a never-ending cycle of struggle and despair." So what we find is that when someone is dealing with one area of need, they very likely have another area of need or some underlying cause that we can look at together as an integration table. And that's kind of the point of being able to look at the broader holistic view of how people are doing and what resources are available in our communities. So as far as performance measurement, we have outcomes and performance measures identified for each of the priority areas, as well as our integration efforts. We'll be developing a dashboard. We'll be returning to you with an annual report in June of each year, certainly to the county, and it'll be disseminated to the lower tiers. And if you'd like a delegation, I'm happy to come back and see you. We'll be providing priority area updates, and you should have received the 2024 update report as the last report of the previous plan. So the role for local municipalities, first of all, we recognize that there's a lot that you already do on your files that contribute to a safe and well community. So we want to applaud your efforts in many ways. Over the years from the previous plan, we appreciate the contributions that we've received through the CAO as far as reports on those priority areas. So thanks, Mr. Dunmore, for the contributions to our annual plans. So anytime that you include proclamations of special dates, I know you have a banner on your website now for dates of significance, the education opportunities and well-being programs you provide for staff, the DEI committee and their important work and the brochure that was published, and as well as things like your community building, recreation programs, those sorts of things are all really important for community building and helping people feel connected to their communities, improving the recreation options through like the tennis and pickleball courts, accessibility equipment, and the ramp subsidy. All of those sorts of things are really important for recognizing community safety and well-being. And then your strategic protections of natural infrastructure and priorities on environment and equity are always very well support the outcomes that we're hoping to see through this plan as well. So any way that you can make a direct link to the community safety and well-being plan and its priorities and actions in your work, either through your strategic plans, your official plan, on your websites, and think about those priority areas when you're making decisions, that would be really helpful in getting us to where we need to be as a community and supporting our residents' well-being. And then seeking out opportunities to integrate efforts and collaborate. So as we know, resources are thin everywhere, and as many opportunities as we have to multi-solve for things, that's always a good mindset to approach your work with. And then, of course, your work on trails, sidewalks, which we heard earlier, is a priority. Roads and lighting will help with that mobility safety piece. So next, we've been meeting monthly as an integration table to get the plan together and published and out to you. And now we'll be reverting to our quarterly meetings with the Community Safety and Wellbeing Integration Table. We'll move into implementation and communication strategies and our annual action plans. We also look forward to continuing to develop relationships across the county to bring more people into the tent for working on this plan. And then we'll bring plan updates to the 2026, June 2026 will be our first annual report. The next round for, already looking ahead to the next plan, the next broad community survey would be scheduled for sometime in 2027. And then looking forward to the next plan. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Fred?
Jennifer, it's a great report, and I enjoyed reading it, but I'm going to make a comment, not a question so much, and the comment may sound like I'm being a bit critical, and I don't really mean it, but I'm giving you an honest reaction. When I read your plan, in a lot of cases, I'd get to the end of one of your sections, like food insecurity, and I found the details of your, quote, plan a bit sort of aspirational, not really hard, here's what we're going to do. Let me give an example just so that my comment is understood. When you look at food insecurity, when you get down to the plan, you say, well, what are we going to do? You're going to collect data. You're going to develop a work plan. You're going to continue to meet. You're going to continue to explore. And I thought, yeah, look, nowhere do I find in the plan to address food insecurity do I find the real solutions. The Ontario Works payment right now, I think, is $695 a week, and people are expected to survive on that. The Ontario Disability payment is, what is it, $1,500, $1,600? No, it's $1,400. The maximum is $1,408 a month. I tried to quickly look up what the average rent in Orangeville is. A person with a disability in Orangeville, I don't even think you could rent an apartment for $1,408 a month. The minimum wage is $17.60 an hour. That sounds fairly good, but I don't know if it's enough to live on. The old age security payments, here's my point. If I were writing a plan on how to deal with food insecurity, I'd go right to the source problem, which is people don't get enough income. And the main culprit here is the provincial government, although the federal government deserves some of the criticism also. That's my point, Jennifer, and I don't really mean that. Look, it's a good report, and I did enjoy reading it, but hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Ralph?
Can I reply?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to reply to that, Deputy Mayor. Yes, this is a high-level plan, and it is at an integration level. I will say, if you're interested in the specific actions and plans for the lead tables, I'm happy to provide that for you. There is a lot more granular level detail going on at those work groups. So this was meant to kind of boil it up, as it were, to show you on a broad level and to be that aspirational level as well, so that we can look broader than the incident response, which we know is happening at the day-to-day at the food banks and at the people who are providing service delivery. So again, this plan was meant to be at the social development and prevention layers, and there is lots of action happening at the incident response level. This is not reflecting everything that's happening on the street, and so we recognized, and I'll just say you pointed to food insecurity specifically, and I happen to chair that subcommittee as well, and we have basically two groups in that group, the planners and the doers. So the planners are conducting their research to more specifically identify where the high-risk categories are, what the residents of our community need, and they are targeting that survey to people who have experienced food insecurity in order to gather more data and find the specific solutions to spend the resources on. The doers are putting in community gardens and pick and eat gardens and working on hot meal programs and filling the vending machines in public areas, 25-cent vending machines, and doing education with students. So there's a lot of action happening, and if you would like a more action-oriented report at some stage, I'd be happy to bring that to you. Because I agree with you, we've got to see more. And actually, one of the outcomes of the integration table, or the priorities of the integrated efforts section, is to do better communication about all the things that are happening. Yeah.
No,
Thank you
Ralph.
for your question.
Thanks for your presentation. What could be more important than the well-being of the community? And I appreciate where you're at now, so my comment may be inappropriate, maybe it'd be more appropriate in 2 or 3 years. But it's along the line of what Fred has asked, and that I was hoping for something stronger in terms of actions, and I'm looking at housing particularly, and there's the only thing with any teeth there is to engage the developers for affordable housing, and that's a hard thing for you to do. What I'd suggest is that also one of your action plans should be advocacy with the provincial government, which has the strings that it can maybe make a difference. And it's been very much on on Ford's agenda was increase in housing, but the way they've gone about it, I don't think has been very productive. And somewhere we need to get their attention, and the more people who get after them, and more organizations, the better it's going to be. Housing is a huge issue. I think that housing prices went up something like 75% over 2016 to 2021. 75% in our area. That's colossal. And so it's an affordability crisis here. And so and maybe it's an affordability crisis for the wrong pieces of housing that are being built. But I think that you have a very strong lever in your organization approaching the provincial government with ideas and advocacy. The other area that I'd like to see a bit more concrete action is in mental health, and that's a tough one because it affects us all at one time or another, and we need to have access to and be aware that it's not a bad thing to ask for help. Thanks very much.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the comment and the question, Councillor. Yes, on the subject of housing, we breezed through it, definitely. There is lots happening, and so again, with the Housing and Homelessness Work Group, with the Deferred Homelessness Task Force, it's important to keep an eye, like a high-level view of all the moving pieces with respect to housing. And for our part, my priority is to be sure that we're centering the voices of lived experience. And they have they've been working on a framework that we've brought into informing this plan to try to keep the focus on what their sense of what is really needed is. And so we're contributing that to the discussions around the task force and the Housing and Homelessness Work Group. And so there's, again, a lot more detail that's happening at that level in their plans. And there really is need for supply across the housing spectrum. So all types of housing is needed. And the ideal is to create mixed housing so that people can live together. You don't have your poor people living over here and your rich people living over here. But you can have some sort of mixed community where there's less stigma, and that can improve mental health, and it improves social standing and social connections and things like that. I'd also say with respect to advocacy, that is one of the areas in our integrated efforts that we can all work on, is greater advocacy. And perhaps in our annual action plans, we would be able to articulate more of a broad approach, an integrated and coordinated approach to advocating at the county, or at the province. We did do some advocacy on income security for food security, which was a campaign that came out of Guelph, and we kind of piggybacked on that in last year it was, and collected, I think, 80 additional signatures that were delivered to Queen's Park. So that sort of activity is something that we can continue to build on, and I think I agree with you, is very important. Thank you.
Linda?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and for the way you did the presentation, i.e. gave us the whole big thing and then snippets of the, it's a good job. But yeah, I too had felt the same thing, but then was reassured when I read the document that, well, I'm waiting, give me that plan, what's going on, right? And so I too, but then when you first start the presentation, you say that, this is working, we're looking over top, so it's like, okay, I'm good with that. But now my next question then is that if this was mandated by the provincial government, why? And is everybody or all the different areas reinventing the wheel, or is I know now the integrating into what our problems are in Dufferin County, but what about the county next door to us, and they got the same problems and or similar ones? Is there work together, or is this for them to take? What's the when they tell you have to do something, then okay, now we've done it. Now what's next?
What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do with what I've done for you? Do we know?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what their intent is to do with the reports or with the plans. I think the intention was to encourage municipalities to take that holistic view and look at what could be applied across priority areas, across the files that you have responsibility for, and between layers of government as well, and including the community in planning and priority setting and action planning. Because I think there's a recognition that resources are strapped across the board. We can't afford to continue to silo. A human is a human with all its,
well, and that indeed all of these things are related. If you don't have a place to live, you're not likely to be able to cook anything. If you can't get any food, you're not likely to have your mental health. It clearly is all related. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see through the development of the new Health and Human Services Hub there will be more operational integration as well, right? This plan kind of allows us to look at and measure on a broad level. And now we can get into the nitty-gritty of actioning those priorities. And I know it seems high level. This is an evolution from a starting point that was, really bringing more partners around the table in a way that's comfortable for them, and that goes from being on the side of their desk to core to their planning, strategizing, and work. And so this is an evolution of that. But you're right, we do have a lot of work to do on the specifics and seeing impact, getting to impact.
Which I see that as if everybody gets on board, that everybody has a plan all around the province, more heads are going to come up with answers. And also when people move, right? People move from one place to another. So I was getting services in this one place, but by necessity I've had to move. But now I don't have the services. Why don't I? Why, right? So that if we were all working together, but I just would hope that your plan wouldn't just come to us, but that would also go up the chain or whatever. No? Yes?
So it does get submitted to the province. And to your point about, what's the county next to us doing and that sort of thing, we do take lessons and examples from neighbors. However, your report really should be place-based because there are unique attributes to this community and what our makeup is, what is available, and what we have access to. And certainly identifying gaps is part of the process. But it's also celebrating strengths and building an attitude of an approach of abundance as opposed to scarcity, and seeing what we have to build on as a community, what is here, and what we can celebrate and move and build on. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
If there's no other questions, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It's very helpful, and I think it goes without saying that when the province mandates us to create such a document, which they have done, we certainly hope for a reaction from them. And I can think of a few areas in here where we've been advocating loudly for years to no effect. And that troubles me, especially when they're now saying, come together, put together a 30,000-foot view document. We submit it to them. We hope to get a feedback and action.
Absolutely, and if I could just quickly respond to that, I think just the acknowledgement that there is a necessity in working together across whatever lines, whatever sectors, and building more of a well-being economy, if you will, or building well-being. That's a good first step. That's an acknowledgement from the province that this is necessary. And perhaps that's an indicator for us that if we join more voices together and push up, then it's on the advocacy piece, to your point precisely, as part of our collaborative action plan. I think that's a great.
I see Elaine's hand up quickly. Elaine, we have to get on to our next delegation, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that I believe it was Fred that brought this up, but yes, there's minimum wage and then there's the livable wage. The Ontario Living Wage Network has calculated the living wage for Dufferin as $21.90. There's a campaign coming forward, I can let you know, from one of our work groups, that the Dufferin County Equity Collaborative, known as DCEC, to recognize employers who pay a living wage.
Good point.
Another example. Great.
And that
I
is
think
a-
it's coming to the county as well, so.
that is a distinction with a difference, as opposed to without a difference. Thank you again, Jennifer.
And the other thing, we can all advocate for guaranteed basic income, so I'll just plug that while I'm here.
What'd she say?
No, I didn't.
Income solutions.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again. Thank you. Our next delegation is,
Excuse me, Your Worship,
yes.
you did have a prepared resolution for council to consider.
Yes, sorry. I have a motion that Council for the Town of Mono adopts the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan 2025 to 2028. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Davey. Any opposition to that? Motion is carried. And the next delegation is Tamara Rebanks and James Appleyard. If you'd like to join us at the table, welcome. And if you could just press the button so that we can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tamara Rebanks, and I'm joined by my husband, James Appleyard. We live on the 5th line, south of Mono Center Road. We appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today to answer questions you may have about our proposal to Council regarding the 2-story stone cottage on the former Shelley Anderson property off Airport Road. We are proposing that Council should allow us to permanently preserve the stone cottage by disassembling it and then relocating it and rebuilding it on our property at our sole expense. The current owners of the Anderson property and the stone cottage, the Thin family, are also here today and fully support this idea. If Council and the town's Heritage Committee are supportive and will remove the historical designation, we will have an expert stonemason, Dean McClelland, lead our project. He has done comparable rebuilds across Ontario before and is prepared to do this at the highest possible standards of historical restoration. We also intend to salvage and reinstall any interior fixtures such as the fireplace mantel, doors, and hardware that we can. Once the house has been rebuilt in its new location, we'd be entirely content if the Heritage Committee chooses to place another historical designation on the relocated building. Indeed, we believe that that would make great sense. Please let me know if we can answer any questions that you may have about this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before I open it up to questions, when I heard about this possibility, frankly, I'm very excited by it because it actually does preserve something that is unique in the town of Mono. I think there's only one other stone cottage of its type. And we do have to take a number of things into consideration, but thank you for your idea, and I'll open it up to questions. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I from what I understand, I think it's a great idea. I do want to hear from the Heritage Committee because there's some other complicating factors, but if that place can be preserved and fixed up with a roof, terrific. What I'm curious about is, so once you've done all of this, what are you going to use the cottage for? Is it a guest house, or is it just going to sit there, or what are you going to, what's it going to be?
We intend to make the interior functional as a guest house, but with a sensitivity to the heritage of the original building.
So to do that, you'd have to, because we've been through this before in Dufferin County with historical buildings, you're going to have to meet the building code. You're going to have to, there's going to have to be wiring, there's going to have to be plumbing, there's going to have to be certain things. And does the cottage, will meeting the building code present any difficulties in trying to preserve what the cottage looks like, or do you know yet?
We don't think so, because we won't add any extension to the building. So the exterior would look precisely as it looks sitting on the Thins property. So the interior will have to evolve, because there wouldn't have been a washroom indoors, for example.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph?
Thanks for coming here and presenting this. In your letter,
Your mic.
turn it on. I'll put it. There's one phrase which caught my attention. I'm wondering what it means. You've mentioned, as Fred has asked you about, you'd faithfully reassemble the structure, thus maintaining its exterior appearance, all good. And then you say, as well as its local connections. What does that mean?
So our property is exactly one line west of the airport road. And so instead of having it moved out of the county to someone else, it's going to be almost as close as possible to the original location.
With respect to physical. And I know your property, as you know, I've been on it. And whereabouts is your preferred location for this?
So we haven't totally fixed on the location, but we're looking at a hillside. So it would be built into the side of a hill like it is now. So trying to mimic as closely as possible the topography of its existing location.
Okay, it's really in the side of a hill right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw your pictures. I was surprised that it looked as good inside.
I know, it's amazing.
Because the roof is, from all appearances from the road, it's quite collapsed.
It was quite a sophisticated design inside.
So here's a question that you may not, well, you probably will like it. Why are you doing this?
Because I come from a museum background. I believe passionately in protecting heritage, and it's a sweet little building, and it is expensive to maintain and restore historic structures, but this particular building, we've seen it on Airport Road for a number of years, and thought, it's incredibly sweet, and suddenly had the idea, and so thought if we can do something to show that it is possible to restore and reuse historic buildings, and this would be something that we would be happy to do.
Okay. My final question is, I guess it's probably directed towards Mr. Simpson. As this is a designated or proposed to be designated as a heritage building, and that is being disputed by the owners. And one of the requirements of this, if we go ahead, was that the designation would be removed. Mr. Simpson, could you tell us what is involved in doing this? I've never seen a designation removed before.
Okay, so the Heritage Act prescribes a process for repealing or amending a designation bylaw. It very closely parallels the process for passing a designation bylaw. So council is required, if they have a heritage committee, to seek that committee's recommendation. There is a requirement to post public notice and give 30-day comment period. So again, very similar to the designation process. Once that's been accomplished, then it is council's decision whether to amend or appeal the bylaw. And that if anyone during the comment period files an objection, then council must take that objection into consideration. If they go ahead and amend or appeal the bylaw, it is further appealable to the OLT by any person.
We are going to have an in-camera session which will deal with the legal issues having to do with the designation, and hopefully flowing from that will be a resolution of council indicating how we want to proceed. We have a question from Elaine Capes.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you for coming to present, and thank you for being so mindful of this beautiful piece of heritage that we do have. I'm interested to know you have a museum background because my question is, would you consider and have you explored relocating this, as you're talking, to the MOD, Museum of Dufferin site? Because that's where it would be preserved and available to be seen by visitors, so that our history and the significance of this stone house and its importance to monoculture could be shared with many, many people. Because I don't know, you just said you've enjoyed seeing it every time you drive up Airport Road. I drive up Airport Road too, and I love seeing that whole parcel. Now, I would like to say that in my mind, Shelley Anderson is our Lucy Maud Montgomery. And there's a tiny manse in Leesdale that is a heritage site with the manse still there for Lucy Maud Montgomery. And I know there's many, many different places that are designated historic because of how she moved around and where she lived and all of that kind of stuff. So while I think it's a shame to remove it from its current location, I applaud what you're trying to do in restoring it, and I think that's amazing. But I would really, really want to know if you've considered relocating it to a museum so that it can be there and seen in all of its beauty.
It's obviously an interesting idea, Councillor. Not something that we're proposing to you. I think there are various ways to preserve heritage. We have, as a family, worked with a number of Ontario museums as donors and so on, and part of governance with museums. And there are relationships that can be developed with museums that can be fruitful, but we can't speak for the interests of the Museum of Dufferin or their interest in owning this building. If that was something they wanted to do, then we would probably step away from the idea. But we're not proposing to donate the building, and pay. It's a six-figure kind of project. We're not proposing to make that contribution to the Museum of Dufferin at this time.
Just to your...
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up, if I could, Your Worship, would this be in a space that's visible like it was or is currently, like when you move it? Is it going to be on your property visible so that other people driving by would go, oh, that's the Shelley Anderson workers' cottage?
So it's interesting. We've had that conversation. We haven't decided just where to place it on our farm property. There's a trade-off between the privacy of our guest house and visibility from the road. So it may be that it's partly visible but not entirely visible. We're not proposing to place it right beside the fifth line because I don't think it would be in the interests of our guests to stay in a building that didn't have that privacy. But hopefully it would be seasonally visible at a distance.
I was intrigued by the written presentation dealing with the issue of your stonemason, the fact that he's a teacher, that he wants to engage students in the process. I understand that it has to be disassembled stone by stone by stone, probably all numbered, so that they can all be put back together again. Can you speak to the issue of the sort of the process that he would be going through, and the educational opportunities for not only his students but the entire community watching this happen?
So, we've worked with Dean for a number of years on some projects on our property. He's quite a remarkable teacher and as well as a craftsman. When he was on our property, he was working extensively with the Saugeen First Nations, and so a number of the workers that he had were Indigenous people who were picking up skills, and they were putting those skills into action through projects that they were being well paid to do. At this time, he has turned a lot of his teaching attention to the Willowbank School, which is Ontario's only heritage crafts institution, as far as I'm aware. And he has proposed that he would include students who are learning how to be stonemasons, perhaps not in the disassembly, but in the reassembly on our land. We wouldn't want to have a lot of activity on the Thins property during the disassembly, so it would probably be on our property during the reassembly. It is going to be an excruciating process of taking apart the building stone by stone, putting a serial number on it, photographing it, and making sure that when the building is rebuilt, each stone goes exactly where it was. So it's very labor intensive, and some students are likely to be involved, and they will presumably relish the opportunity to be involved with a real heritage project that's so intensive.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in the town of Mono's history. I'm struggling. I know that we're just taking information today because, as our clerk has indicated, we'll have to take advice from our heritage committee that knows a lot more about these things than I do. But when does something become heritage, and when does it just become something that is, recycled, reused, and garbage reduced, right? Like, it sounds to me, to make this to move this like this, I mean, I've done all sorts of renovations and tried to save a building, and if somebody comes in and tells you that, no, we need to take all that down and redo this, and says, no, I'd like to keep that and just add something to it. And it never goes the way you think it's going to go. It always costs way more, takes longer, and is different. It evolves. So I'm very nervous that this grand idea is just not executable, except to say that obviously there are things. The Museum of Dufferin has a building inside of it that has been moved someplace else. Wood, I think, when big panels and whatever, is a little different than a bunch of crumbling stones, which that is the shame that it has deteriorated so, right? So huge project, and I just need a whole lot more information. And just the question of when does something, like Councillor Cape's saying, it's a shame to move it from the actual collection, the collection and its location right now. So what part of heritage does it then speak to in the future when it's an Airbnb guest house on another property kilometers away that, I need more advice on it, but it's a very interesting proposition.
So a couple of things. I can promise you it won't be an Airbnb. I can also promise you that it will go over budget. You mentioned it going over budget, so I'm quite confident that it'll go over budget. But quite seriously, look, it's better to keep a building in its original location, but sometimes under exceptional circumstances, relocations can be done well, and our intention is to do a great job. We're not fooling around with this. This is something that we would take on with high professionalism. And it's not that we're grabbing the rubble and building something else. It's going to be built exactly the way it is.
Which is crumbling. I mean, that's the other,
Well,
which is crumbling.
It has modern mortar on the outside, which is causing the stones to splay. So the stones will be further damaged by the trapping of moisture behind the modern mortar. So there is the building will continue to deteriorate until it's restored.
Right, and so restoration, if there were, so since you've been involved in these kinds of things, and particularly with this same mason, what would you do if this was your farm and it was just in situ that you're going to restore it? How do you do that? You have to bring in other rocks where things have been, other stones need to be sourced that are similar and so on, right?
So we've just restored the barn at the former Morgan property, and there were gaps where stone had crumbled, and so we put stone in, and you can't actually tell the difference between where the original stone was and the new, which is kind of amazing. But in this case, there's no proposal to use freshly cut stone. It would all be stone from the mid-19th century.
Good, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. And as I say, we will have a discussion in camera, primarily because there are issues regarding the Ontario Land Tribunal that need to be addressed before we can proceed, and we're going to do that today, and hopefully there'll be a resolution coming from that in-camera discussion. And as you heard, the matter will have to go back to the Heritage Committee for their consideration. They will then make a recommendation to us. I'm hoping that this will all be done on a timely basis, and then we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time. Appreciate
And I
it.
see John chomping at the bit in the back there.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
About this building? Is it, I'm presuming it's, thank you, Melinda. It's built on a crawl space, is that right? There's no basement to it? No.
There is an earth cellar.
There is, okay, that was a cold, for vegetables and things.
Exactly.
It has a dirt floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to stand up in it. It's short.
No, I'm familiar with that. When I bought my house, people were shorter then. And there wasn't a lot of cement around.
Yes.
The other thing that I found interesting about your written presentation was the people who originally used this building, and the fact that it became a meeting house for a fraternal order of agronomists or agricultural people who are seeking to improve agriculture, and an American-based organization. And I did not know that about the house. But when you Google that particular organization, it has a very storied history. And I'm not certain that there were very many chapters in Ontario, but that appears to be one of them.
The building has an amazing history. Certainly our neighbor, John Riley, knows a lot more about the history of the building than we do, but it's probably a good setup for him.
I think John wants to make a pitch here. Will council indulge John, who's a good friend of the town? And as you pointed out, the Thane family are here in the audience watching the presentation. Certainly we can be in touch with you as a result of whatever decisions we make. Thank you. John, do you want to make a short elevator pitch? Oh my goodness. The green hills of Mono. Wow. and there is the structure.
I am John Riley. I live on the 5th line, halfway between the old Anderson and the old Coleman, or as it was referred to, the Morgan Farm. I had the privilege almost 50 years ago to meet and get to know Shelley Anderson and Elmer Coleman, who were born and raised on their respective family farms on the 5th and the 6th lines. So my interest today, and I will try to be brief, is to support any means by which the Andersons' old stone cottage can be saved. Elmer would sometimes drive around Mono with me, showing me things. One time he took me, for example, into a woodlot near Elba. If you don't know where Elba is, I don't think there are any street signs to that effect, to show me what he called the last of the Mississauga campsites in Mono. He told me how he and Ken Holmes and Shelley Anderson, when they were kids, had visited the abandoned campsite. His souvenir from that visit was a polished black stone calumet pipe head, which he showed me back at his place and which he let me photograph. It was Elmer who told me that the stone cottage that we're talking about today, east of the Anderson house, had been the home of a Mississauga family who had been the Anderson family's farmhands for a generation. I shared with you the book, what it looked like 50 years ago. Shelley co-authored that book. It was published by the town council, titled The Green Hills of Mono. On page 4, he put the photo of the stone cottage, captioned, quotes, "This stone house on lot 17 on the 6th line," that's his place, "is typical of many such built in Mono from this abundant raw material," i.e. stones. "It was once the headquarters of the Grange when that rural organization was active in these parts." You can, as you have done, sir, look up the National Grange on Wikipedia at your leisure and judge just how forward-thinking was the farming community of Mono of that era, and how heritage-minded. When I first saw the signs of roof damage on the Anderson cottage, I immediately notified a member of the Heritage Committee, and I suggested a meeting with its owner to volunteer to them the contact information of a construction crew that I've worked with who could have fixed it for a couple $100. Now, years later, it's almost beyond repair. But I've learned today there is an opportunity to save this building. Please make this happen. Do not let it go down on our watch. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Did you want your book back?
Oh, Fred would like to see it.
Oh, I thought you did.
I saw it when.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fred seems to recall, I'd like to see it. Yeah, I saw it, John.
That photograph is going to be very valuable. Okay, thank you, and we won't reach the in-camera portion for a while, but we will let you know what the results are if there are any motions flowing from it. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, unfinished business and deferred items, and it is our traditional list. Any questions, comments about the list? Elaine?
Thank you, Your Worship. I did just want to, and maybe we've had enough discussion on this, on unfinished business number 2, the noise bylaw. And I guess my question is, can we go to the Ag Society and give them a copy of our current noise bylaw and assure them that they need to host events, that their hosters are going to live by our bylaw, or they will be dealt with.
Elaine, I've asked the OAS whether or not in their contracts with potential users, whether there's an acknowledgement that the bylaws of the town are to be abided by. And they assure me that there is a provision of their contract. They have not provided me with a copy, but they are quite aware of the necessity of abiding by our bylaw.
I know, but we've had residents come even this morning to say, you know, parts of the circus are still gonna happen. We've got motorcycles going on. We got monster trucks going on. It seems to me that they're saying that, but I would like proof. I would like to see it, and I would like to see a copy of our bylaw in their hands, that they have the people who sign the application to lease sign it to acknowledge that they've received it.
Thanks for bringing this up, Elaine. We have a problem here because we've, in open session, have let it be known that the bylaw is largely unenforceable. And this place, as I said, I have a precarious position to do very much. I'd be interested in somehow or other reinforcing the message that the town is upset with them. I wasn't at the Ram Rodeo, but I was informed by a neighbor that the noise went on until close to 7 p.m. the first night. So it appears to me that the event center is not policing their events and showing that they really regard our bylaw as you'd like them to think, Your Honor. So some message should be sent to them, and it might be so simply that in view of the inability of them to police their previous events in June, that we're upset with them, and this is going to probably affect our. Maybe we can't say that, but it probably will affect our articulation of the new noise bylaw.
Okay,
Well,
sorry, Councillor Melancthon, much of what you said I didn't hear because it, for some reason, is garbled in and out. So that's.
Can I just?
So
Can
I
I just
appreciate
jump?
your response, and I do think that the CVC has been successful at monitoring their own decibels on their property. Maybe they would lend the equipment to the OAS so that they can do likewise. So put the onus back on them to assure that it doesn't reach annoying levels at this point, according to our current bylaw.
So if I may, the intent of the noise bylaw returning, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this when the issue came up in question period, is that it's going to come back in a version very similar to, if not identical to, the Orangeville bylaw, which is no amplified noise with, I believe, 3 exceptions, which are quite reasonable, with an appeal or an exemption process. The clerk has further suggested that maybe we should negotiate with the event center and or the CVC something that is maybe a little more flexible than that. And I think it remains to be seen whether we will do that. But if the event center really wants to sit down and talk to us, I would suggest here publicly that they govern themselves accordingly while we're in this period of flux between the old bylaw, which has been identified many times, not just today, but many times in the past as unenforceable. And I think the proof of that is that I don't think we've laid any charges under it. Or if we have, it's been ages and ages ago, and certainly not with any success. So I think that proves that we have a bylaw that's unenforceable. But notwithstanding that, I think the word of the town should go towards, and a long way towards, the organization following our spirit of the bylaw, if not the actual intent. Fred? Did I summarize that correctly? I know you don't like this topic.
I'm not sure there's anything I can add to that, Your Worship. We had noise complaints. We responded to them the following day. We spoke with the organizers. They abided, I'm talking specifically Ram Rodeo, they abided by that after we visited them. And I don't know what else that I can state. The OAS is aware of our noise bylaw. They have made attempts to ensure that they abide by it as best they can.
I think that's as much as we can do at this point. Anything else on unfinished business list? Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship, if I may, just to further, just to try and help council recall that the Ag Center had not entered into an agreement with the circus prior to the exemption request. I'm not sure what happened with the Ram Rodeo because there was conversation between me and the Ag Center that they had not entered into a contract either, so I'm not sure what had happened, how that proceeded. Yeah, the Ag Center is well aware of our noise bylaw, and from what I can understand, are not. We're generally, when speaking about the circus, not allowing any amplified music or amplified noise after 5 p.m. and that was pretty strong in their notes to the circus, and I believe that happens the coming weekend, or it happened last weekend. So.
And it seems as if the circus may go ahead with one of two shows, the one in the afternoon that would be over by 5.
Yeah, it appears that with respect to the circus, I mean, the Ram Rodeo, yeah, the notifications and the conversations that everybody had, and we were here, they were here, everybody was here the last time we talked about the noise bylaw. It looked to me like the Ram Rodeo wasn't going to go ahead. And then it went ahead, but then they certainly backed down on the Sunday and were quiet after the 5 p.m. But the circus one, they came for the exemption. We've said no. He didn't know what maybe we're not going to do, but they postponed it. They didn't have it. It was supposed to be this past weekend. They didn't have it, but they have issued notification that those of you who had tickets for the June come in August, because we're going to have an August one. So I suppose what's happening is that they are going to come back with a proposal, or that they're going to try to do it within our bylaw, or hoping that our bylaw will be a new bylaw by then, or whatever. August, on the one hand, is close, and on the other hand is a few weeks away to try to reorganize your event, right? So it's all up in the air. Kim?
Thank you, Councillor Davey. When I read that, it was my understanding that they're trying to reorganize to a different venue.
Okay.
So the event has been postponed, so that's good. Okay, very good.
Okay.
But there is a circus proposal for August. I'm not sure who that is. Is it the circus proposal at the OAS Center in August?
Well, again, that's what the tickets say, but perhaps Kim's got other information. As I say, pushing your event, not having your event in June, pushing it to August makes all sorts of possibilities that, to be able to do it, right? So, but I think that, I don't think it's fair to publicly continue to say that the Orangeville Ag Society is not doing their best. They've come here to the meetings. They've circulated us on their correspondence that they've had with their not patrons, but their event people and or clients, their event clients, and it certainly looks on the surface like they are really trying to abide by our rules.
I could say something, but I won't.
In my opinion.
Not even that.
What surface healer, yeah.
Anyways, anything further? Seeing none, I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Oh, Fred?
No, Your Worship, we're actually on unfinished business. That's what this discussion was under.
Oh, I realize that, but I didn't see any further comments on unfinished business, unless I missed something. So I was proposing that we move on to Schedule A. And I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda, moved by Councillor Melancthon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Discussion? Items? Fred?
No, I just wanted to say I really liked item number 12.
Did you want to talk about it?
No. I guess, I mean, I would hope the province listens to them and gives us those powers. Not that I understand all of them, but it would help us in the event that these truck depots move north.
Yeah, you like the penalties.
The Caledon letter is based on a letter that Brampton Mayor Brown wrote to the province. And many of the penalties are taken from that letter. So far, there's been no response by the province. And I suspect there'll be delegations at AMO, but I would like to see us, a simple motion of endorsement for that Caledon initiative, because as Fred has said, we're next, potentially.
I'll move that then.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second that motion because that was on my list of items to bring forward, as you know, because I sent you my list.
Thank you. Fred, are we okay with that? Just a simple endorsement?
So that Council for the Town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution by the Town of Caledon calling on the provincial government and to any suggestions here?
Just simply that we endorse their letter.
Without indicating
What the letter
Yeah.
is?
the letter is?
Well, by date and
Giving us powers to control illegal land use.
illegal land use, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So amend the Planning Act. And the Municipal Act. They've asked
Yeah,
for
it's
a lot of stuff.
actually to bring both into synchronization.
Does someone from council want to just offer this up as a notice of motion later this meeting? And then a motion can be drafted and brought back to council next meeting? Does that work?
I'm happy to write it. Yeah, let's do it as a notice of motion. Okay.
Okay.
Elaine, why don't we knock off the ones on your list?
Yeah, that's good for a notice of motion, thank you. So number 3, the Alexander Planning Review of Bill 17, thank you. Page 3, variances. It talks about variances as of right, which just terrifies me anyway. That last paragraph talks about height coverage. So it talks about their need for being, like in the second paragraph, you know, the ERO suggests the ministry wants to hear comments on other standards like height coverage. So I would like to speak to height, that when we approve a build, it should not be at height of land, which means it should not be up and towering down over everything else. So that is a standard that I've been told about where they uphold in other places, and I would like to consider that. That's a comment. And then the MMAH technical review suggests there will be consultation. Well, is there really going to be consultation? Where and when might that happen?
Sorry, Councillor Capes, but this letter predated the
deadline.
The deadline for comments, and as you're probably aware, it received
passed.
17 passed as well. 17 passed as well, so the comment period was not respected and it didn't pass.
Okay, so the 26th of June doesn't count anymore.
No, the 26, I believe shortly before that, they passed it.
Right, okay, thank you very much for that. Well, there's so much for my input there, but that's what I noticed. Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going, Elaine.
Okay, so number 7, which was the OPP household calculation. I just want to confirm, you don't have to confirm it today, Les, if you don't have it, but I want to confirm that our numbers match their numbers. So maybe that's for another day.
Just to clarify that number, Counselor, that's property count. So that includes, it's not just residential. So if you think it's a little
Right.
high versus residential properties, it is, but that would include commercial and that kind of property.
Right,
And they did say that they do get their numbers from MPAC.
yes, they did.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing a double check on them through you. Thank you, Les. Okay, the number 9, Town of Orangeville, Area 3, because I can't tell from the map. Is that Mono?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is, Elaine.
It goes right up to the Hockley Road and the county road.
I can't hear you, sorry.
From what we can determine, the map is very blurry, but it appears to go straight up the west side of Highway 10, right up to the intersection of Hockley Road, County Road, and Highway 10. So it would pick up the car dealerships, it would pick up the Watermark and Monora Park, and what it has to do with what it has to do with the creation of new housing opportunities, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't they buy that piece of land from Aragon and put something useful in there? So at what point do we go back to them and say, we're not interested, and find somewhere else?
I think Mike can give us an update.
So strong thoughts have already been provided to Orangeville from my office. They're in the stage right now where they're just approving the RFP to commence with this study. I plan to, during one of our discussions with a consultant planner, talk about the process, why it's in here, what the expectations are, and why in the world they would be looking at land that was already serviced, subdivided, and people sleeping with their heads in bed, which is not the creation of new housing or development. I'm trying to understand right now what the impact of the county growth numbers are and how they did this, to what they did to Orangeville. Did the county drive an expansion to the Orangeville boundaries? I'm trying to see whether Orangeville should be going up or down, but I think the big focus here is probably Area 1 that people should look at. But strong thoughts through to the Orangeville CAO have been provided with respect to how we found out. The mayor found out a couple weeks earlier to getting this letter, I think through a committee meeting, or I'm not sure how you found out, John, but how we found out why the social outreach, platform outreach that Orangeville could have done, and I think the CAOs from Amaranth, East Gary, haven't heard from Caledon, but Amaranth and East Gary have the same feeling that we have right now.
Okay. Fred?
Just to add a comment, I mean, most of that land in Area 3 is either already developed with houses and roads, or 2 of the biggest lots in there, one is owned by Credit Valley Conservation, the other big lot is owned by the town of Mono. So even if Orangeville were to take it over, Credit Valley and the town of Mona would still own those large pieces of land, and
Well, that's why I'm not understanding how the expropriation / annexation works yet. And do we lose, what makes us different from an individual resident who owns 100 acres, or the Christian school, for example? The Christian school is involved in here. Town of Mona Klondike gravel pit is in here, an ARA license in the town of Mona's name, and a stockpile of reserves of gravel that the town, even though they're under beautiful Mono Nordic ski trails, Kim's recreation property, it's still a stockpile and an asset to the town of Mono that is, as you can see from the delegations we had, people are looking at these assets as big things.
Free and clear, yeah.
well, except that the gravel that's under Klondike, the license to mine that is quite restricted as to where it can be used, which would be of absolutely no value to the town of Orangeville. All my point is that, I don't think Area 3 is at all feasible, even if Orangeville were to take it over. There'd be too many impediments for them to do anything with that land if they took it over.
That's the goal, what I want to find for council, but I think I have talked about this before. There still is a bigger discussion to have about our Cardinal Woods drinking water system, right? There's a big discussion to be had there. We're processing that through the EA. We're looking at long-term potential stabilization of our water systems, arsenic and pressurized systems. So there's a bigger discussion. I think this may flush some of them, and so will the update that's being commenced with the Tier 3 update from the Joint Water Management Group. So there's a big discussion to be had here. So, but that's the goal, is to get back to council with respect to what the future process looks on this, and when the town of Mono should be announcing something formally or responding formally.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And one last one was number 14. I would like to support, so I'd like a resolution of support. We should be increasing wages to our veterans. This is, I think, abominable, but anyway. In the current world that we live in, if we don't support the veterans that we have now, we're not going to attract any new recruits to the armed forces, and we're going to be in big trouble. We're already having trouble on that front, I know that. And so we need to support our veterans, and they shouldn't be living in poverty. So I'd like to do a letter of support.
So if I may propose for council on that topic, that council for the town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution passed by the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, calling on the federal government to increase income support thresholds for Canadian veterans.
Would you like to move that, Elaine?
Yes, thank you, I would. And thank you, Fred, for drafting that so eloquently and fast.
Do we have a second? Councillor Melancthon seconds. Any discussion, opposition? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, any other items on Schedule A? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Reports of...
Your worship, if you could just call the vote on Schedule A, please.
Yes, a motion on the floor on Schedule A. Any opposition to that? It's carried. Did I not?
Moved it and seconded at the beginning.
Yeah. I just didn't call them out.
Okay.
Okay, so next item, reports of members of staff and council. Let's start with Les.
I have nothing new to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, just briefly, the town engineer and the town's well contractor has commenced with the well testing, pump testing at the Klondike pit as of yesterday. And so far it's going well. It's expected to be wrapped up probably both Thursday or Friday of this week. So that's the long-term testing as part of the EA study that's ongoing, just to see the feasibility of that well.
Just to request from Mr. Donor, what is your management of the excessive heat for your staff that are working outside?
Operations manager and operations foreman are monitoring that, and they're starting earlier and wrapping up earlier and back to the shop, lots of water. We are running calcium and gravel resurfacing right now, and they're starting earlier. Trying to beat it a little bit, and it sounds like this afternoon it's supposed to come down a little bit and into the weekend, so that's a positive. Because the long weekend, just on the staffing note, just because the long weekend kind of falls under, I believe it's Tuesday, it's a long
Yeah.
weekend, we are going to have a dialed back staff on Monday and kind of split the two up, just so we do have some staff available for the long weekend on the Tuesday.
Thank you. I'd just like to reinforce the importance of this, particularly at the beginning of the season. We're all more susceptible to heat, and when temperatures are up around 34 or 35 and you're working outside, it can go downhill very, very quickly. Not just for oldies like me, but for the young ones too.
Feel free to drop them off some freezies and popsicles if you see them on the road.
I met them on the third line today, and they had watered down the road quite well, but they were looking exhausted.
Okay, Kim.
Thank you. Well, I'd also like to indicate that the recreation staff would love freezies and popsicles as well, who are out there right now doing things out in the parks and at the community centers outside. So a couple of things. First is to let you know that I did attend the Menorah Lawn Bowling Provincial Tournament and went and welcomed everyone on behalf of the town of Mono. It was great to see. There was probably about 40 individuals participating in the tournament, and the winner of that tournament was heading to Vancouver in the fall for the national finals. So there was some really kind of exciting lawn bowling that took place at the greens on that weekend. So we also wrapped up at the end of May our Mono Ping Pong Club. So for the season, and I just wanted to send a huge thank you out to Karen Rosenbrock, who coordinates the program for us and is the volunteer who is in attendance each week to open and close the building and just make sure everyone has a lot of fun. So yeah, big thank you to Karen. The other thing is I wanted to let you know that I've had a new Mono resident reach out to me who has recently moved in, and this gentleman is a qualified Qigong instructor, which is a form of internal arts. And Qigong is similar to Tai Chi, but it doesn't have as many movements in it, so it's easier to pick up. Anyways, he has reached out to us, hearing about our Senior Superstars program, and has volunteered to instruct individuals in the art of Qigong. We've talked about, I've looked into his qualifications, and I have received certifications from him, and he's got everything that I'm very happy to endorse that he is very qualified to teach this program. He taught prior in Vaughan. The intention would be to run the program twice a week, once in the mornings and once in the evenings, both taking place at Mono Center. And it is hoped that the program would draw seniors and working professionals who have a sedentary, thank you, sedentary, it's one of those words, lifestyle, to get up and get moving. We would offer people to register through the town of Mono for the course. There would be a nominal registration fee, just basically to entice people to show up and to cover in-house administration costs. And basically, though, it would be like a cost-neutral program. And we would start it off with running from September through to December to see how it goes over. And he also offered to hold 4 free introductory classes, 2 at Menorah and 2 at Mono Center in August, to just give people a taste of what Qigong is like. So I'm really excited that this gentleman has reached out to us, has volunteered for this, and to let you know about this upcoming program.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question to that?
Yeah, Elaine, and then.
Oh.
Elaine, did you have your hand up?
Yes, you wanted me?
Did you have your hand up?
So, is this, oh, that's, I'm terribly sorry. I think that's left over from last time. But thank you for those updates. And that's great, Kim. Thanks.
Great. Kim, can I ask a question? August is terrific. If he wants to do a couple of intro classes, that's great. Did we decide at our meeting that maybe we would ask him to come to the Mono Melodies as a demonstration too?
Yes, I
because
had-
it's in August, right?
Right, I had indicated that he had, I mentioned Mono Melodies to this gentleman, and he had wholeheartedly agreed to come and start the program of Mono Melodies with, a 5 or 10 minute demonstration on Qigong too. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Fred?
I don't have anything, Your Worship.
Mike?
Nor do I, Your Worship.
Melinda?
Yeah, I don't have anything except to say that we have a notice out calling all amateur musicians and performers. I think that that we are doing Mono Melodies again on Sunday, in the afternoon, 2 to 4 on Sunday, August 10th. And but we'll be in the park with our picnic bench, but we need some acts. So submit by July 15th is the notice. There's posters around, and it's up on the website and the socials.
Thank you. Ralph?
Just an update on the pollinator garden. We completed the pathways, and everybody's quite happy with them. This was done by Sunshine. There was a $5,000 bill, and that was paid for by an anonymous donor. On the 6th of July, we're having an unveiling, and Michael Adams and Marianne Thady-Nugent will be there. They're the donors that provided the money for the unveiling, or for the statue, and for the development of the mound. The mound is now fully planted, and any of you who'd like to attend, I'd be very happy. If you're going to stay for lunch, please let me know. We're going to likely be going to Mono Cliffs Park at lunch at noon. The unveiling will happen at 11 a.m. on Sunday, July the 6th.
Thanks. The only thing I have to report is the issue of the OPP costing model. There was a call conference on this that I joined and Les joined. I was muted. I could not participate, which sort of made me annoyed because I wanted to raise the issue of the future of the OPP supplement. In other words, the sum of money that we pay towards extra policing road safety. We've been doing it now for probably 24 years, and with Larry Matkowski's retirement and with a new costing model on the horizon, the question has arisen, will the OPP continue to allow us a supplement, or will they try and put us in a situation where it would become paid duty officers? And the problem with paid duty is that it's billable at time and a half. So we would be getting less bang for our buck if that is the future of dealing with additional policing. I followed up with the consultants by way of email, and within 24 hours I was shepherded into a call with the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Solicitor General. I hit a nerve. And they were really terrific. I have to say that they were very interested in this angle. I think they shared some concerns that paid duty is not a replacement for the complement model. And they also put me on to somebody very high up in the OPP in Aurelia to talk about it as well, and he was quite spectacular. So we've got it on the radar, and the position has been, I think, and will be supported by other municipalities who have many more supplemental officers than we do. Caledon has 27. We have 1.25 full-time equivalents. So it really raises some fundamental questions about how this traffic safety is going to be continued. So that's all I have to report. Yeah.
Your Honor, your concern is there's a difference in the service provided by a dedicated person from the alternative, which is anybody who can sign up for extra time.
That's correct, and paid duty is traditionally things like, there's a parade or something, and the officer's out there to direct traffic and that sort of thing. It's a means for the line officers to get a little more time, make a little more money, but it's not necessarily an indication of a commitment to something as important as road safety, and certainly we'll never replace Larry. There's no way we replace Larry, but we don't want to go to a situation where we're dependent upon people wanting to get extra hours either. Go ahead.
The only thing I have to report is I went to the Credit Valley Awards dinner last week, and the thing to note was the Headwater Streams Committee was given the Outstanding Volunteer Award. The members of the committee who were there were myself, Rob Best, Karen Morrison, Phelps Goodman, and Dave Dice. And I particularly would like to point out Karen Morrison, who's the chair of the Headwater Streams Committee. She's done a fantastic job, and if I didn't tell you this at the last meeting, she's just managed to get a $5,000 grant. Unless it does not flow through our books, it'll go straight to the NVCA to continue with the biomass study that they started 3 years ago. They'll actually be doing that work this week. I know this is complicated technical stuff, so pay attention, Kim. This is hard. Credit Valley has been doing this for years. They catch the little trout, they measure them, and don't ask me how you do it, but somehow you get a measure of biomass in a watershed. And you track this over time. The importance is it shows the impact of development on a sub-watershed. So the NVCA has just started this with the help of the Headwater Streams Committee. We supported them 3 years ago. Again, they'll be doing it this week on at the Canyons Falls portion of the Nottawasaga River. But it was Karen Morrison who got the grant that made this possible. That's all I have to report.
Okay. Elaine, sorry. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, thank you. Well, congratulations, Fred, for that, and to Karen, that's awesome. And on the award, that's really wonderful. We should put that on our website. Uh-oh, Andrew, sorry about that. Anyway, there was a DEI meeting that I had to send regrets to, but we did have a heritage meeting, and I was able to attend that meeting, but we're talking about that when we get to in camera. Are we doing in camera? Yeah? Okay. Anyway, so that's it for now. Thanks.
Notices of motion. I don't see any. In camera, I have a motion that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended.
I'm sorry, John, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
I have a motion that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 12:15 PM, I should say, for Heritage, Anderson Heritage Designation OLT Appeal, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Mantalo. Any opposition? Motion is carried, and we will go in camera. No, we're not yet.
I got a doctor's appointment.
Okay.
We're back live.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion that we rise from an in-camera session at 12:45 PM, and that in light of the offer to preserve the stone cottage on the Anderson farm, we request the Heritage Advisory Committee to review and recommend whether designation of the Anderson farm structures should be repealed to facilitate preservation of this historic structure, and that such review and recommendation be made in sufficient time to be considered by council at its July 15th meeting.
Wording, can I make a friendly amendment to that? The wording of that, I'm sorry, the wording of that is a little loaded, isn't it? Recommended or
It
not?
is.
Recommended or not? As you went
No, it
along,
doesn't
just
say,
recommended.
no, I don't, it's not recommended or not. Whether
I know, it doesn't
they
say that.
Whether the committee recommends the designation of the structure should be repealed to facilitate the preservation of this historic. So we're doing it in aid of
No,
advancing.
I understand that, I think it's loaded.
It's up to the committee.
I agree with you, Melinda. I think it shouldn't be repealed. You could say could be revised
No.
or could be
A
reviewed.
revision doesn't
not
solve the
repealed.
problem of the building department.
Your worship, if someone just moves and seconds it,
I move.
as read, then it'll be voted on unless someone
Thank you.
moves to amend it.
I move.
Oh, I see.
No, it wasn't on the floor yet.
No, I hadn't called for a mover and seconder yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Now, if someone wants to move to amend it,
Any
then there may
amendments?
be a motion to amend it.
I would like to make a move to amend it just to make it a broader, open-ended question to the Heritage Committee. They know what the question is and all of the nuances. They will have heard the proposal because it's in public. I would prefer it to be a little bit more open-ended.
Give us your wording.
Yeah, and I can't.
So it's not friendly because it's a total variance to the intent of the motion.
So-
The
Well,
motion is
that's
very
what I'm saying. The intent is to
Councillor
tell.
Davy, if you can put the words specifically that you're moving, that the motion be amended, and actually give us the words.
Okay, can I see it in writing?
Can I
only
help
because
you,
I'm
Melinda?
not
Let's
good
just
with-
take out the word repeal.
No. In the light of the preservation, we request the Heritage Committee review the designation. Review the designation. That's it. Just take out and recommend. So anyway, that's what I'm asking. Elaine? So, and that in the light of the offer to preserve the stone cottage on the Anderson farm, we request the Heritage Committee review whether designation of the Anderson farm structures should be repealed to facilitate preservation. I don't like that "and recommend" because the wording in it sounds like you're recommending it to be,
Review?
yeah.
Okay.
Can we
That's it,
name the
just to remove
structure?
"and recommend." That's
Can
my
we
friendly
name
amendment.
the specific structure? Because, John,
No.
I guess I'm confused. You're telling me it
No,
has to be.
abroad, have them look at it
Let
broadly.
the Heritage Committee come back and say whatever they want to say. Yes. So
Okay.
the friendly amendment is to review whether the designation of the Anderson, it reads the same. So it's just simply to review. And frankly, but we're asking such review and recommendations, if any, or just recommendations, come back by the July 15th meeting.
Review and provide recommendations, sure.
Yeah.
Do you think the 15th is realistic for
Yes,
them?
I do, because they're scheduled, I think, to meet. When's your next meeting, Elaine?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So I'm going to, the motion is to strike out and recommend.
Yeah,
Moved by, it's a friendly amendment. So call the question.
So, just yours, so it's moved by Davy and seconded by Capes?
Yeah,
Oh, Capes, sure.
Yes.
Capes.
let's have Elaine do it.
So,
Thank you.
Call on that amending motion?
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Main motion
As amended?
as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Okay.
Show me where this proposed quarry is. They said,
Yeah, I'm not done, we're not done the meeting.
Sorry, Ralph, we're still in the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Mono in session 2025 held on the 24th of June 2025, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Moved by Councillor Capes, seconded by Councillor Melancthon. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And finally, I have a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 12:51 a.m., moved by Councillor Davy.
Yep.
And seconded by Councillor Melancthon. Seeing no opposition, motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm sorry, I had it because I was watching it